Chapter 10:16. In the Heaven Chief Restaurant. In the kitchen, Bu Fong was holding the seven-colored sky mending duck with a slender neck and rainbow-colored feathers. As the duck was held by the neck, it kept spurting essence, energy, and immortal energy from its mouth. The system had introduced Bu Fong to cook roast duck, but it didn't give Bu Fong a detailed cooking method or recipe. It just gave him a set of ingredients. Thus, this roast duck had to be cooked by Bu Fong himself. Fortunately, roast duck was a world-famous dish in Bu Fong's previous life. He had studied it, so he wasn't too worried. Duck was the most common poultry, and in his previous life, there were many ways to cook it. Beer duck, ginger duck, roasted flour duck, and so on. However, the most famous one was still roast duck. Even in the whole world, it was considered a famous dish. Cooking roast duck and eating roast duck were different skills. Bu Fong didn't start cooking immediately. He held the seven-colored sky mending duck with one hand and clasped the other behind his back, pondering. He wanted to recall the cooking method and process of roast duck. The process of cooking roast duck was very complicated. A slight mistake could make the roast duck taste completely different. In his previous life, there were roast ducks everywhere, but they all tasted different. That was because the cooking process was different. The difference in heat control and cooking method would make the roast duck taste different. After a long time, only then did Bu Fong move. The seven-colored sky mending duck cried one more time, its hoarse voice echoing. Essence, energy, and immortal energy gushed out at the same time. His mind flickered. The dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. The dragon bone kitchen knife emitted a dazzling golden light, which was dazzling and eye-catching. It spun in Bu Fong's hand, creating a gust of wind. To cook roast duck, he had to process the duck first. Although the seven-colored sky mending duck was an immortal ingredient, it was still a duck. Holding the seven-colored sky mending duck, Bu Fong's eyes became sharp. A frightening aura was being emitted from his body. It was as if an overlord had appeared behind him. The seven-colored sky mending duck's body immediately stiffened, and it didn't dare to move. The next moment, a saber light instantly slashed. Tens of thousands of saber lights converged into one saber, the Overlord saber. There was a tearing noise. It sliced through the seven-colored sky mending duck's throat. The method that Bu Fong used was the three-tube amputation method, which was the most common and effective way to deal with ducks. It could completely preserve the duck's body without any damage. The so-called three-tube amputation method was to accurately make a cut on the throat of a bird. This cut would not only sever the arteries and meridians, but also the trachea and esophagus. The seven-colored sky mending duck remained motionless. Bu Fong took the basin. He poured the seven-colored sky mending duck's blood into the basin. The seven-colored sky mending duck was worthy of being an immortal ingredient. Its blood was overflowing with immortal energy. This duck blood could be processed, and it would be another delicacy when it was used in a hot pot. Duck blood in hot pot was tender and delicious. After dealing with the duck, it was time to start shedding its feathers. Swish Bu Fong prepared the boiling water, then put the seven-colored sky mending duck into it. He soaked it for a while, waiting for the duck's feathers to soften. Then, he could start the next step. When the duck's feathers were soft, he could start shedding them. Scalding and shedding were actually two processes. For Bu Fong, this process wasn't too difficult. Swish, he fished out the steaming seven-colored sky mending duck from the boiling Heavenly Mountain Spirit spring water. The steaming hot water immediately flowed down. True energy emitted, covering Bu Fong's palm. His eyes focused, Bu Fong grabbed the seven-colored sky mending duck's neck. A moment later, he pulled it down. As he pulled, the seven-colored feathers on the seven-colored sky mending duck were all plucked off. Throwing out a bunch of feathers, Bu Fong once again pulled it down from the top. After a few times, there were only a few feathers left on the seven-colored sky mending duck. As for those feathers, Bu Fong carefully took them out bit by bit. When the duck's body was smooth and there were no feathers left, the shedding process was completed. After shedding the feathers, it was time to remove the dirt. This process was very important because the roast duck needed to keep its body intact. If there were any cracks, the duck would be useless. Bufong lifted the duck's wings, using the dragon bone kitchen knife to make an opening. Then he took out the internal organs. This process wasn't too difficult. However, since the opening was under the wings, the roast duck looked intact on the surface. The process of taking out the internal organs had to be fast, which was more than enough for Bufong's hand speed. Then, he started to clean the duck. Without its feathers, the seven-colored sky mending duck wasn't much different from an ordinary duck. Of course, its meat quality couldn't be compared. Being soaked in immortal energy every day, the quality of the duck meat was beyond imagination. It was even better than 80s chicken meat. Although Little 8 was also an immortal material, it had yet to reach the level of the seven-colored sky mending duck. At this moment, Bufong was wondering if he should ask the system to give him one more so that he could raise it in the heaven and earth farmland. Of course, this was a story for another time. Bufong's main task now was to make roast duck. After busying himself for a while, he finally cleaned the duck. Putting the duck aside, Bufong began to prepare some other things. He summoned the black turtle constellation wok. He poured the syrup he got from the system into the pot. Opening his mouth, a ball of golden lotus flame darted out, drilling into the bottom of the black turtle constellation wok. This was the golden lotus demonic flame, which had been completely controlled by Bufong after he had devoured it. Although Bufong's control of the golden lotus demonic flame had not reached the level where he could command the heaven and earth obsidian flame like his own arm, it was not a problem for him to boil some sugar water. After all, it was an immortal fire, and its temperature was extremely high. If he used the heaven and earth obsidian flame to burn the syrup, he did not know how long it would take for it to boil. However, since it was an immortal flame, the boiling speed was much faster. No wonder every heaven chief wanted to get a good immortal flame. To a chef, the quality of an immortal flame was really important. The flame ranked in the top 50 of the immortal flame ranking was naturally extraordinary. Gurgle. The pale golden syrup began to boil, and a sweet smell emanated from the syrup. When the syrup was boiling, Bufong brought the seven-colored sky mending duck over, hanging it on a hook. He scooped up a big ladle of boiling syrup, pouring it into the sky mending duck's mouth. Swish! Steam rose, and waves of immortal energy twirled around the sky mending duck's body. Bufong's eyes focused. He scooped up another ladle of syrup and poured it again. He did it several times. Finally, he finished watering the duck. The duck's body was golden, and its yellow color was like a crystal. However, it wasn't over yet. After watering the duck with the boiling syrup, Bufong used the room-temperature syrup to water it several times. Eventually, the duck was completely watered. After that, the preparation of the roast duck was almost done. Next, it was time to cool the duck. Under normal circumstances, it would take about 24 hours to cool the duck. Moreover, it needed to be placed in a cool and ventilated place. However, Bufong had the tools provided by the system, which could greatly reduce the time. He opened the cabinet door, hanging the golden duck, which was still dripping syrup, on the cabinet. This cabinet was what Bufong had used to brew wine. It could speed up the flow of time and reduce the waiting time. Originally, it would take 24 hours, but now, it would only take about 2 hours. Earth Prison, in the boundless mountain range, in a canyon that seemed to have been split open by a sharp divine sword, there was a palace standing alone. Not far from the palace, a shadow dashed out. Hades' era landed outside the palace. Looking at the closed door, he exhaled slightly. He took out a spicy strip, putting it in his mouth. He still had some spicy strips, so he wasn't in a hurry. However, now that he was back in Earth Prison, he had to use the spicy strips sparingly. He didn't know when he would see Bufong again. This time, Hades' era planned to work hard to improve his cultivation base. Even if he couldn't reach his father's level, he would at least work hard to get close to that level. Phew. Actually, Hades' era had a lot of things in his heart. Why did his father fall in the invincible nether prison? This was something he couldn't understand. Hence, sometimes he really wanted to find out the truth. However, he was always stopped, and the person who stopped him was now in the palace. It was the leader of the 5 great Earth Prison overlords. Earth Prison overlording long. He pushed open the palace door. A distant creaking sound rang out. Hades Era walked along the bluestone path of the palace, slowly moving forward. Soon, he stepped into the main palace. It was a familiar palace, the palace that he grew up with, the palace that had existed in his memory for a long time. Hades' Palace. Hades' Palace used to be incomparably glorious. Thousands of clans in Earth Prison came to pay their respects, and no one dared to disrespect Hades. Of course, that was when Era's father was still alive. Today, Hades' Palace had long been ruined. It was no longer able to make thousands of clans in Earth Prison come to pay their respects. Hence, Hades' Era had a dream, which was to reach his father's level one day. At the side of the palace, an old figure sat alone. He saw Hades' Era, his old eyes carrying a faint pressure. The child, Old Iron, stood beside the old man nervously. When he saw Nether King Erha, his eyes instantly lit up, and his chubby face revealed an excited look. His Excellency Hades, you're finally back. You've made me wait for a long time. Earth Prison Overlord Ing Long said casually. He stood up, his back hunched. That mangy dog took my hollow eye. So, after I'm done talking to His Excellency Hades, I'm going to meet that mangy dog. Hades' Era tilted his head. His robe was open, and a spicy strip was dangling from the corner of his mouth. Tell me, old man, what do you want to tell I? Inglong furrowed his brows, looking at Hades. He seemed to be a little angry, shaking his head. You're still as sloppy as ever. Anyway, it's good that you can give up on finding the cause of your father's death. There are some things that you can't meddle in. You should just stay in Hades' Palace and be the lord of the Netherworld. Inglong said. While talking, he walked down from the high seat. Soon, he came to Hades' Era's side. The playful look on Hades' Era's face gradually disappeared. It became unusually cold as he stared at Inglong, Earth Prison Overlord. You old man, you must know something. Why didn't you tell me? It's not the right time for you to know. Stay in Hades' Palace. Inglong said lightly. With his hands clasped behind his back, he walked out of Hades' Palace. It seemed he just wanted to say a few words to Hades' Era. Hades' Era's eyes shot out a cold light. However, as soon as he turned around, a formation emerged beside Inglong, Earth Prison Overlord. Nether energy shot up into the sky. A moment later, two ferocious corpse ghosts emerged from the formation. The aura of the corpse ghosts was really formidable. It seemed that this old man really wanted to seal him in Hades' Palace. Hades' Era's eyes focused. He bit hard, breaking the spicy strip in his mouth. Heaven Chief Restaurant, the Gongshu family's lord, Gongshu Baiguang, hurried over with Gongshu Ban and Gongshu Yun. Since he knew the realm lord was in this restaurant, how could Gongshu Baiguang not come and greet him? It was fine if he didn't know, but now that he knew, he couldn't ignore him. As soon as he reached the restaurant's entrance, Gongshu Baiguang was bewildered. From a distance, City Lord Mu Yang brought Mu Luer over. The City Lord wore an incomparably solemn robe. When he saw Gongshu Baiguang at the restaurant's entrance, he was a little surprised. However, both of their identities weren't ordinary. They seemed to understand each other's thoughts. They looked at each other, smiled at each other, and nodded. You don't say anything, I don't say anything. We're good friends. A moment later, they turned around, ready to enter the restaurant. However, as soon as they turned around, thick black clouds rolled over from the top of the restaurant. Chapter 1017. Such a fresh, refined, and unpretentious black cloud. It seems the restaurant is going to have another immortal dish. Gongshu Baiguang stroked his beard, squinting his eyes. Moreover, it's not an ordinary immortal dish. From the direction and thickness of the black clouds, this dish isn't ordinary. City Lord Mu Yang said, stroking his beautiful beard. Gongshu Baiguang and Mu Yang exchanged looks, then burst out laughing as if they had a tacit understanding. Gongshu Ban and Mu Luer were bewildered. What were these two old men laughing at? Without saying much, they pushed open the restaurant's door, stepping inside. As soon as the door was pushed open, a thick aroma wafted out of the restaurant. This aroma had a faint sweetness and a meaty aroma, which stirred people's minds. The restaurant wasn't big. It was Gong Shu Ban and Gong Shu Yun's first time here, so they were a little curious. To Bu Fong, Gong Shu Ban's heart was full of admiration. That chef could use his immortal chef power to destroy the Tong family's previous head, Tong Rua's plan. If it weren't for Bu Fong, he would have been dead by now. Thus, he was very curious and grateful to Bu Fong. Inside the small restaurant, there were so many people. Everyone sat around the table in the distance. There were many acquaintances whom they had met in the land of inheritance. After the Gong Shu family's people and the Mu family's people came in, they sat around the empty seats. Originally, there weren't many seats. With so many people squeezing in, the seats were filled. There were no more empty seats. Gong Shu Baiguang wanted to sit next to the Realm Lord. However, when he looked, he found a big guy sitting next to the Realm Lord. That guy emitted a terrifying aura, which made people feel a little scared. With such an existence, if he asked to change seats, would he be beaten up? When Mu Yang came in, he just glanced at the Realm Lord. Seeing the Realm Lord take off his clothes one more time, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. He didn't expect the Realm Lord to be such a person. They sat in a circle around the table. The people sitting at the table were all different from each other. There was naturally no need to talk about the naked Realm Lord. That black-faced, big eyes aura was incomparably terrifying. Behind him were several beauties. One of them was as cold as ice. She wore black armor and held a heavy sword in one hand. There was also a beauty with pink hair and pink lips. She was fiddling with a strand of dog fur in her hand. The last beauty was much more natural. She wore a long black dress and looked elegant. Her hair hung down her waist. The people at this table were all different. Were they all waiting for Owner Boo's dishes? He sniffed the fragrance in the air. City Lord Mu Yang's face slightly froze. Looks like this dish is going to be interesting. In the kitchen, Bu Fong opened the cupboard and took out the duck, which had already cooled down. The cooled duck turned golden. The syrup seemed to have seeped into the duck meat, making it look a little tight. The next step was the key step of making the roast duck. Roast duck naturally needed to be roasted before it could be cooked. And this roasting was very particular. How to roast it and how well it was roasted were the key to the taste of the roast duck. Then, he poured the heavenly mountain spirit spring water, which had been boiled in the black turtle constellation wok, into the cut on the duck's neck. This method was called soup filling. During the process of roasting the duck, the color of the soup changed, which represented the degree of maturity of the roast duck. After filling the duck with soup, Bu Fong poured the soup one more time, which was also called coloring. After coloring, the plump duck was almost ready to be roasted in the stove. His mind flickered. Bu Fong's figure disappeared from his spot. A moment later, he appeared in the heaven and earth farmland. It had been a long time since he came to the farmland. The spirit energy here was getting thicker, and the ground was full of rice, spirit vegetables, and spirit herbs. In the distance, Niu Han-san seemed to sense Bu Fong's arrival. He waved his arm at Bu Fong. "Owner Bu, over here." Niu Han-san stood in front of a clay oven, excitedly waving his arm at Bu Fong. He grinned, revealing his shiny teeth. Bu Fong came in front of the oven, holding the duck that had been coated with a layer of syrup. After sizing it up, a satisfied look appeared on his face. Owner Bu said to prepare this oven, so I didn't say anything and immediately started to prepare it. Look, according to your design, a brand new oven has been perfectly presented, Niu Han-san said proudly. You've worked hard. Have you prepared the wood I need? Bu Fong asked. Of course. There aren't many things in the heaven and earth farmland, but there's definitely a lot of wood. Moreover, I've chosen the best wood. Niu Han-san said with a smile. In the distance, the 8 treasures pig watched. 80 was sitting on its head. Those two fellows blinked, watching from a distance. They didn't dare to come close. They were afraid of Bu Fong. One of them had his leg cut, and the other had his flesh cut. In their eyes, Bu Fong was a demon. Bu Fong thanked Niu Han-san. Then, he started to light the wood in the oven. As soon as his immortal flame appeared, the temperature soared. The entire oven seemed to have turned scarlet. Bu Fong hung the duck in the oven. Then, Bu Fong sat cross-legged on the ground. A moment later, his spirit sea surged with waves. Rumble, rumble. Waves of mental energy rippled from outside, covering the oven in just a blink of an eye. He began to sense the changes of the duck in the oven. In the restaurant, everybody had been waiting impatiently for a long time. The dark clouds in the sky had shrouded for a long time, and the thunder had been rumbling for a long time. However, it hadn't fallen yet, which meant that Bu Fong's dish hadn't been finished. What kind of dish is that little chef cooking? Why'd he take so long? Although the seven-colored sky mending duck is hard to cook, it shouldn't take that much time. The naked realm Lord Dit had one hand on his waist, his other hand slightly bent. His forehead rested on it as he contemplated. While he was talking, his pose wasn't ruined. In his words, this was the art of nudity. Yu Ji's eyes focused, looking at the kitchen. She hoped that Bu Fong's dish wouldn't disappoint her. Otherwise, she would have to bring Yu back to Earth Prison. And if she returned to Earth Prison, she didn't know if she could suppress Yu's curse. Once Yu's curse broke out, the consequences were unimaginable. Suddenly, a commotion arose. Realm Lord Dit gave up on maintaining his art. He lifted his head, playing with his blonde hair. I can't do it anymore. I'm really curious about what that little chef is cooking. I'm going to take a look. Just a look. Realm Lord Dit said. Jin Jiao glanced at him. A moment later, Realm Lord Dit leaped up from his seat. He leaped toward the kitchen. His lower body bloomed with holy light as he made a jumping motion. He wanted to jump into the kitchen with one step. He knew how difficult it was to cook the seven-colored sky mending duck. Thus, he was curious about what kind of dish Bu Fong could cook. Buzz, the kitchen is forbidden. No one is allowed to enter. Right when Realm Lord Dit was about to enter the kitchen, a buzzing sound arose. A mechanical buzzing sound reverberated. A moment later, Whitey appeared in front of Realm Lord Dit. His fan-like palms slapped toward Realm Lord Dit. Troublemaker, you will be stripped as an example to others. Realm Lord Dit was bewildered. He didn't expect an Earth immortal puppet to stop him. His body landed. Realm Lord Dit placed his hands on his waist, his eyes bright. What do you want? Strip? Come on. This Realm Lord can do whatever you want. Realm Lord Dit said. Shao Bai, the crowd. Lord Go rolled his eyes. He was speechless when facing Realm Lord Dit. No comparison, no harm. Compared to this Realm Lord Dit, Hades' era was so normal. Gongshu Baiguang gawked and dropped his jaw. That F***Kerr. Was he really the supreme realm lord of their heaven chief realm? Wasn't he a pervert who came from some corner? Mu Yang's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Gong Shuyan shyly covered her face. However, she opened her fingers, watching with interest. Are you afraid? When has this realm lord ever been afraid of being stripped? Stripping is an art. I think you must be a person of the same profession. Unfortunately, you are only an Earth immortal puppet. Otherwise, I would definitely want to experience your art of stripping, Realm Lord Dit said. In the next moment, he strode toward the kitchen. Lord Go's body propped up, his eyes bright as he watched. Xiaobai wanted to stop him, but how could he be a match for Realm Lord Dit? Realm Lord Dit snapped his fingers. Tens of thousands of energy congregated, restraining Xiaobai's movements. Rumble, ring, ring. The curtain was lifted, and the sound of bells rang out. Realm Lord Dit's movements froze. Sizzle, sizzle, ah, sizzle, sizzle, ah. A wave of rhythmic screeching arose. Everyone's eyes shrank, looking at the Realm Lord's direction. Lord Go's dog mouth cracked open, his face excited. Boom. A loud explosion. Realm Lord Dit's figure returned to his original position. His face was pitch black, and his silky blonde hair stood up, fuming with smoke. Purple electric arcs moved on his body. Realm Lord Dit's face stiffened. A kitchen door had the purple god lightning protecting it. Didn't he just want to see the kitchen? Was it necessary? Seeing Realm Lord Dit's encounter, everybody's eyes shrank. Jin Jiao's brows arched. Luo Ji was curious. Gongshu Baiguang and Mu Yang's eyes froze, feeling suspicious. Is that really the Realm Lord, His Highness? He was defeated by a small restaurant's door. Xiao Bai's figure disappeared into the kitchen one more time. Realm Lord Dit opened his mouth, exhaling white smoke. Boom, boom, boom. Outside, Thunder boomed unceasingly. It seemed like lightning was about to strike. Lord Go looked at Realm Lord Dit, who was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. He grinned, his dog face gloating. It's not that easy to enter Bu Fong's kitchen. Lord Go grinned. Ring, ring. The curtain of the kitchen was lifted one more time. The bell rang. A moment later, from the kitchen, a figure slowly walked out. A thick aroma diffused, sweeping the entire place. This aroma made everybody excited. Realm Lord Dit straightened his neck. With his afro hair, he stared at the kitchen, squinting. This smell? It's weird. Realm Lord Dit's nose twitched. He had never smelled this kind of aroma before. It smelled like barbecue, but it was different. Bu Fong's figure became clearer. He was holding a big plate. Everybody's eyes brightened. Bu Fong walked out, coming to the table. On the blue and white porcelain plate, there was a brown-colored roast duck. Its surface sparkled like a mirror, and faint steam rose from it. It was a perfect whole, incomparably perfect. Next to the roast duck, there was a plate of dough, a plate of chili sauce, and some scale-tail scallions. Boom! Rumble! A thunderous explosion instantly resounded in everyone's ears. The lightning that had been suppressed for a long time in the sky roared and pounced on the small restaurant. Bu Fong's secret roast duck. Done. As the lightning struck, Bu Fong's faint voice echoed in the restaurant. Everybody was bewildered. Chapter 10:18. The onlookers' mouths twitched. Only then did Yu Chi's expression become much more relaxed. I hope so. Although Realm Lord Dit was a monster, as the strongest chef in the Heaven Chief realm, a high-grade Chilean chef, it was impossible for him to make a mistake. A perfect immortal dish? How could a dish of this level appear? A moment later, City Lord Mu Yang's eyes shot out incomparably bright light. That blade seemed to come from the sky. Kid, you're wrong. The number of lightning punishments you trigger has nothing to do with your immortal chef's grade. The number of lightning punishments represents how exquisite and perfect a dish is. Usually, one lightning punishment means that you've completed the dish. 2 lightning punishments means that the dish is exquisite and flawless, and 3 lightning punishments means that it's perfect. Above the 3 lightning punishments, there are still 4 or 5. Of course, that kind of level rarely appears. Young man, your dish isn't good enough, Bu Fong asked skeptically. Then Bu Fong walked out of the restaurant, walking toward Xiaobai. The aroma was so fragrant. After a long time, the crowd heard a series of footsteps. Around the restaurant, many people had heard the commotion. When they saw the scene, they couldn't believe it, and they gloated over Bu Fong's misfortune. Is he crazy? There are 3 lightning tribulations, and each one is stronger than the previous one. How could he possibly have the strength to resist such a tribulation? However, he didn't linger. Wielding the war god's stick, he dashed forward. When the second lightning punishment appeared, Xiao Bai was a little bewildered. Bu Fong wore a striped red and white vermilion robe. He clasped his hands, returning unscathed. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes flashed. Then, he wielded the war god's stick, smashing it at the Thunder Dragon. 3 lightning punishments. TSK, TSK, TSK. Worthy of being the man I like. Realm Lord Dit looked at the roast duck, and he couldn't help but exclaim. Owner Bu wants to resist the 3rd lightning punishment himself. Bu Fong looked at him fearlessly and nodded. This level of talent, this level of skill. If we were to participate in the Heaven Chief Realm Youth Heaven Chief Tournament, our Heaven Chief Realm's first level would definitely be able to enter the top 10. This robe is actually an immortal artifact. Furthermore, it's an extraordinary immortal artifact. It's a pity that I, the Realm Lord, don't really like wearing clothes. Otherwise, I'd borrow it and try it out. It was like an immortal sword that could pierce through the world. The dragon bone kitchen knife immediately entered the belly of the roast duck. This Dit Realm Lord clearly had golden hair before, and his head didn't emit smoke. He was very confident in his dishes. Before Realm Master Dit could say anything, Bu Fong clasped his hands behind his back and raised his head. His hair fluttered under the pressure. Are you trying to suppress it with the powerful essence energy in the dish? That's right. That little girl's curse can be suppressed with a dish with thick essence energy. However, I've tried it, and it doesn't work. Realm Master Dit continued, especially since the essence energy in your dish is so weak. If you use the essence energy of a 7th or 8th grade immortal dish, it would be better. A loud explosion arose. After Bu Fong took out the knife, the belly of the roast duck emitted a dazzling light. It was so dazzling that people couldn't bear to look at it directly. The true immortal dish, lightning punishment, had to be shouldered by the chef himself. Of course, this so-called shouldering could be done with the chef's fleshly body, the chef's earth immortal puppet, immortal tools, and other methods. Of course it's you, you said seriously, her face cold. Gongshu Baiguang and City Lord Mu Yang were dumbstruck, looking at Bu Fong in disbelief. The kitchen knife spun in his hand, twirling in the air. Jin Jiao sniffed the aroma in the air, his stomach rumbling like thunder. The Thunder Dragon roared. Realm Master Dit also stood up. Realm Master Dit was also a little surprised. Purple God Lightning. How could this restaurant have such a level of lightning? But this level of Purple God Lightning punishment was a little too much, right? Gongshu Baiguang stroked his beard, smiling. Everyone was bewildered, looking at the lightning punishment outside in disbelief. With a loud bang, he slammed the table. Bu Fong took a deep breath. Rumble. Realm Master Dit said seriously. You tell me, who do you believe? What? Another thunderclap? It was as if it was made of gold, attracting people's eyes. A moment later, he took everyone's blue and white porcelain bowl, scooping a bowl of soup. Bu Fong looked at them. How could it be? They could use dragon blood rice to suppress it. Why did Realm Master Dit say that they needed a 7th or 8th grade immortal dish? A loud and clear bird cry rang out. Realm Master Dit's face was covered in tears. Was this question fair? Why did he ask me? Realm Master Dit stared at the vermilion robe on Bu Fong, his eyes bright. Then he reached out his hand. After a thunderclap and a flash of lightning, blue lightning bolts fell from the sky. Wait, let's go through the lightning punishment first. Could it be that Bu Fong was lying to her? With his afro, Realm Lord Di-Tai raised his head and looked at Bu Fong with a playful look. Is this the second lightning punishment? Looks like the quality of this dish isn't bad. The appearance of the lightning punishment shocked many Heaven Chief in the Immortal City. This is an artistic afro. Do you know what art is? Of course not. Do you believe him? Bu Fong twitched the corner of his mouth. Instantly, the roast duck on the blue and white porcelain plate jumped up. If Bu Fong couldn't resist the lightning punishment, he would be burnt to a crisp by the third strike. City Lord Mu Yang looked at Bu Fong as if he was looking at a treasure. Everyone was in a daze. When Bu Fong took out the golden dragon bone kitchen knife and was about to cut the roast duck, they came to their senses. Rumble. If it weren't for that fellow's naked body, Bu Fong would have mistaken him for someone else. A fragrant aroma wafted from the roast duck, lingering in people's nostrils. Their eyes brightened. Everybody was bewildered. What did this little chef want to do? Swish, the corners of his mouth rose. Please have a taste. He reached out his hand, patting Xiao Bai's smooth head, asking Xiao Bai to return to the restaurant first. Steaming hot and colorful, this bowl of soup caused everyone to be slightly shocked. From the abdomen, milky white soup seeped out. As the immortal dish's grade became higher, the lightning punishment from the Heaven Chief Realm's heavenly path would also become stronger. Aren't your sister? He wanted to peek at someone else's kitchen, but he was punished by the purple lightning. What's wrong with your head? As a chef, he was very sensitive to lightning. Xiao Bai's body flashed with lightning arcs. Scooping a spoonful of soup, Bu Fong poured it into the chili sauce he had prepared. Bu Fong took less than 1/4 of the abyssal chili sauce. After adding the soup, he began to stir. Bu Fong didn't want the spicy taste. He wanted the abyssal taste of the abyssal chili sauce. Everybody took in a breath of cold air. They couldn't believe it. Could there be some kind of misunderstanding? Everybody was bewildered. A thick aroma shot up into the sky. Realm Lord Dit said, supporting his chin with one hand. However, the so-called lightning protection array could only work on some low-level lightning punishments. Realm Lord Dit and the others were bewildered. Realm Lord Dit lazily glanced at Gongshu Ban, speaking casually. A loud explosion echoed. Bu Fong was a little bewildered. As long as the chef could bear it himself, the immortal dish could receive more of the great path's meaning. The blade ended. Crack, because the birth of each immortal dish was related to lightning. A dish that could glow. Impossible. I've tried the curse on that little girl. Even if I cooked it myself, it wouldn't work. Even if I could suppress it, it wouldn't last long. However, just as the lightning bolt was 1 inch away from his body, Bu Fong's eyes widened. Now let's taste. Bu Fong's secret roast duck. Everybody took in a breath of cold air. They were stunned by this blade. The dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. The great path of the Heaven Chief realm would send the lightning punishment. The chef had to resist the lightning punishment to make the dish take shape and contain the true meaning of the great path. A soft sound rang out. Bu Fong's eyes focused. Although many chefs in the Heaven Chief realm had invented the lightning protection array, Bu Fong furrowed his brows, looking at Xiao Bai in the distance. He found that Xiao Bai couldn't bear it anymore. Shortly after, Bu Fong stirred the soup and chili sauce, turning them into a red sauce. Is this the dish you've cooked? Can it really suppress the curse in you? 1 jet of gold light, 2 jets of gold light, 3 jets of gold light. Apparently, it was a little difficult for him to resist the 3 lightning strikes. In just a blink of an eye, it dashed toward the lightning outside. Boom! Everybody was bewildered. Then they saw the roast duck skin and meat cut into slices, placed on a plate. They were shocked. They didn't think that the 7-colored sky mending duck would be made like that. Where's the duck's 7-colored skin? Bu Fong's calm voice resounded through the entire area, causing everyone's gazes to involuntarily gather on him. The second lightning punishment? Impossible. You're just an immortal chef. How could you cook a dish that could trigger the second lightning punishment? Bu Fong looked past Yu and rested his eyes on Nethery. The corners of his mouth twitched. Let's get each of us a bowl of thick soup first, said Bu Fong. Rumble. Bu Fong's secret roast duck is done. The lightning light was so bright that people couldn't help but close their eyes. Bu Fong said casually. Bu Fong said, wouldn't it lose the most important taste of the 7-colored sky mending duck? Bu Fong put away his kitchen knife. He leaned forward, holding the table with both hands. Instantly, Bu Fong's vermilion robe turned scarlet, and scarlet flaming feathers spread out behind him. Xiao Bai's figure dashed out of the restaurant. On the blue and white porcelain plate, there was a huge roast duck that was brown in color. Under the illumination of the light, the roast duck's body emitted a little bit of brilliance. Is that really the case? Yu Qi's pupils shrank as her expression turned grave. His Earth immortal puppet couldn't endure it anymore, and Ownerbu decided to do it himself? The moment people thought the lightning punishment was over, the second thunder rumbled. What? He just wanted to take a look at the restaurant. A booming sound echoed. Realm Lord Dit thought to himself. Everybody's eyes shrank. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Yu gazed at Bu Fong, her eyes sparkling. Everybody was startled. It was the thick soup of the roast duck, which was mixed with many precious spirit herbs. Those spirit herbs were colorful and granular. The thick soup wrapped around the ingredients and flowed out. As the lightning went into his stomach, it was absorbed unceasingly. I told you, those black clouds aren't ordinary. Of course, the lightning punishment this time isn't ordinary, either. The terrifying explosion reverberated throughout the entire immortal city. Then, lightning twirled around Xiao Bai's body. Another even thicker bolt of lightning struck down from the black clouds. Cutting immortal style, Gongshu Ban asked skeptically. Bu Fong was a little bewildered. Boom, boom, boom. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes twinkled, which meant that this lightning strike was his limit. City Lord Mu Yang rubbed his chin. When the 3 lightning tribulations appeared, it made everyone's hair stand on end. Indeed, it was Owner Bu's style. For a moment, Yu didn't know what to say. It seemed this 7-colored sky mending duck dish would surprise him. Boom, Bu Fong said. However, shortly after, they were bewildered. What's going on? An immortal dish could trigger the third lightning punishment? Is it that awesome? Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and eat. You guys wait here. I'll be right back. Then, clasping his hands, he slowly lifted his head, looking at the third lightning punishment in the sky. Chapter 1019. Please have a taste. When Bufong said that, everyone at the table looked at each other in dismay. How should they eat it? Should they drink the soup or eat the roast duck? They blinked their innocent eyes, looking at Bufong. Bufong was a little bewildered. Then, the corners of his mouth twitched. Let me show you how to eat it. The way to eat the roast duck is a little bit particular, Bufong said. Everyone was bewildered. Eating roast duck required particular attention. However, they didn't think too much about it. Bufong took out a piece of doe skin from a pile. The white doe skin was personally made by Bufong, and the flour was made from the spirit wheat in the heaven and earth farmland, which was full of spirit energy. The doe skin was thin and warm. When it covered his palm, it gave him a warm feeling. It was like caressing an empty skin, giving people a comfortable feeling that they had never felt before. Everyone stared at Bufong. Bufong used one hand to support the doe skin, while the other hand held a pair of chopsticks. First, he used the chopsticks to pick up some spirit vegetables that Bufong had cut, placing them on the doe skin. Then he picked up a piece of sparkling roast duck meat, placing it on top of the spirit vegetables. The scale-tail scallion was cut into pieces, and Bufong also took some and mixed them together. The chopsticks picked up one side of the doe skin, folding it over. The other side did the same, folding it over and over again until it was a roll. The chopsticks picked up the roast duck meat wrapped in the doe skin, then dipped it into the sauce, dipping it. This sauce was specially made by Bufong. When eating roast duck, one had to eat the roast duck meat, the doe skin, and the sauce. None of the three could be omitted, because if any of them were missing, it would be hard to achieve a perfect gourmet experience. Dipping the doe skin in the red sauce, Bufong took it out, stuffing it into his mouth. After stuffing a roll into his mouth began to bite. The moment his teeth bit down, the doe skin returned with an intoxicating elasticity. The taste of the sauce burst forth. There was the smell of roast duck soup and the abyssal smell of abyssal chili sauce. Because the spiciness was neutralized, it wasn't that strong, but the slight spiciness was even more unforgettable. Kacha! The skin of the doe was broken, and what he bit down was the crispy spirit vegetables and the roast duck meat. The oil that seeped out from the roast duck in an instant, and the rich, honey-sweet taste of the relic that couldn't melt in one's mouth simply caused one's eyes to widen at this moment. Rumble, rumble. Everyone watched as Bufong swallowed his face in one gulp. They couldn't help but widen their eyes and swallow their saliva. It was so exquisite that each ingredient seemed to be perfect. Exhaling, Gongshu Ban's face was dazed. At this moment, the others also had the same expression. Realm Lord Dit was very curious. It was the first time he had seen this way of eating. As the Realm Lord of the Heaven Chief Realm, of course, he knew how to combine dishes. However, this kind of combination was really interesting. Apparently, the heat control and the cooking process of the roast duck meat were meticulously done. Every part was perfect. The explosive power contained in the dough made Realm Lord Ditai raise his brows. Apparently, there was something wrong with the kneading method. Chewing the dish, Realm Lord Dit's mouth curved into a smile. Not bad. His mind flickered. A long robe appeared in Realm Lord Dit's hand. Wrapping the robe, Realm Lord Dit made another roll, shoving it into his mouth. Then, he drank a mouthful of soup, exhaling steam. Wow, delicious. Realm Lord Dit's eyes shot out flames. He punched the table. Everyone present was startled. Then, swish. Realm Lord Dit used both hands to grab the robe that he had just wrapped his body, tearing it. This delicacy deserves this Realm Lord to tear my clothes. Such dishes are worthy of this Realm Lord's praise with naked art. The people around were dumbstruck. Looking at Dit, who was acting like a madman, Realm Lord Muyang was speechless. Gongshu Baiguang and City Lord Muyang almost choked on the roast duck meat. Holy sh*t. Realm Lord His Highness was too abnormal. However, Bufong's eyes didn't care about the others. His line of sight fell on you. This dish, one, was to complete the system's task, and the other was to prove that his dish could suppress the curse in Yu's body. Yuchi looked at Bufong deeply. Then, she copied Bufong's method, preparing to roast duck meat. Come, little girl. Eat it, said Yuchi. Wow, baby, I want it too. Yin Jiao came over, his face bewildered. However, what responded to him was only Yuchi's heavy sword that came slapping horizontally. With a thud, Yin Jiao was sent flying, landing on the restaurant's door. There was an empty seat. Lord Go stepped on it with his elegant cat-like steps. He wanted to make a roast duck meat to taste. Although it wasn't as delicious as sweet and sour ribs as Bufong's dish, it should be acceptable. You stuffed the entire roll into her mouth. Her small mouth bulged as she chewed continuously. Yuchi and Bufong stared at her, watching her carefully. Nethery's mouth moved. Her cute little mouth was stuffed full, and it looked as though she couldn't bite through it. You ate. Her mouth moved faster and faster. His eyes gradually lit up. Delicious. While Yu was chewing, she opened her mouth to say something. Instantly, thick essence energy and spirit energy gushed out. Yu was so scared that she hurried to cover her mouth. Munch, munch. Only the sound of chewing could be heard in the entire restaurant. Lord Go's dog paw held a wrapped roll, dipped in the sauce, and happily stuffed it into his mouth. Squinting, he stuck out his tongue, chewing unceasingly. Gulp. With a sizzling sound, she swallowed the food in her mouth, which was boiling hot, into her stomach. Yuchi exhaled deeply. She looked at Bufong, her eyes so solemn. Now, let's see if your dish can suppress the curse on this little girl, Yuchi said to Bufong. Bufong's face stiffened. Can we see the curse? Of course, Yuchi said. A moment later, a formation emerged in her hand. It was a formation made of dark nether energy. That formation was very small, occupying only half of her palm. She waved her hand. The formation immediately appeared and floated in the void. Yuchi raised her finger, touching the formation, pushing it toward you. As the formation got closer, Bufong's eyes shrank. Because he found that the closer the formation was to you, a green light kept floating out of Yu's body. The green light turned into many small snakes, coiling around Nethery's body. In the distance, Realm Lord D-Tai was naked. Naturally, he saw Nethery's appearance. He was a little surprised. It seems it's really suppressed. The Realm Lord felt a little incredulous. Was his previous analysis just bullsh*t? It didn't mean that the essence energy of Bufong's dish couldn't suppress the curse. But what was going on with those sleeping cursed snakes? Could this little chef's dish really suppress them? Could it be that there are some elements in this dish that I don't know? Yu's curse was really suppressed. If it wasn't suppressed, those cursed snakes would keep crawling, releasing waves of curse energy to corrode Yu's body, bringing a soul-piercing pain. Sure enough, it can be suppressed. Seeing this scene for the first time, Bufong was a little shocked. He didn't expect that Yu had such a terrible curse. This isn't an ordinary curse. Without special means, we can't find it, Yuchi said. How did the curse on you come about? Bufong frowned, asking suspiciously. He had wanted to ask this question for a long time. Why was the cursed Netherworld woman cursed? You were banished because of the curse, but where did the curse come from? Was it innate? However, when Bufong asked this question, Yuchi heaved a sigh of relief, but her face changed again. You don't need to worry about where the curse comes from. My little sister is in your hands. You just need to suppress the curse in her body. Don't worry about other things. One day, I will use the sword in my hand to cut off the source of the curse, freeing this little girl completely. Yuchi said. Bufong frowned. He wanted to ask something else. However, Lord Go's gentle and magnetic voice interrupted him. Bufong, boy, Lord Go wants to eat the duck drumstick. Can you give the roast duck drumstick to Lord Go? Bufong was bewildered. He looked at Lord Go, but he saw Lord Go wave his paw at him, signaling him not to ask anymore. Bufong frowned. Suddenly, Lord Go's eyes moved, looking at the outside of the restaurant. The dog's mouth twitched. Bu Fong, boy, prepare the roast duck drumstick for Lord Go. Lord Go is going out to deal with some trouble and will be back soon. Chapter 10:20. Bu Fong, kid, prepare the roast duck for Lord Go. Lord Go is going out to deal with some trouble. He'll be back soon. Lord Go's gentle and magnetic voice arose. Bu Fong was bewildered. Going out to deal with some trouble? What kind of trouble needed Lord Go to deal with it personally? He even asked me to prepare the roast duck. However, before Bu Fong could ask more questions, Lord Go strode his cat-like steps, heading out of the restaurant. Shortly after, he disappeared through the door. As soon as Lord Go left, Silverhorn grinned, crawling to Lord Go's place. His face looked intoxicated. Baby, your dearest Silverhorn is back. Silverhorn looked at Yu-Ji, smiling warmly. At this moment, Yu-Ji was in a good mood. When she knew that Bu Fong's dishes could subdue the curse in Yu's body, she felt as though a big stone had been lifted from her heart. She felt as though a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. If Bu Fong's dishes could subdue the curse, she would have enough time to find a method to break it. She would find the source of the curse and destroy it with one slash. She would save you from the torment of the curse. All of a sudden, Jin Jiao, whose mouth was stuffed, furrowed his brows. Luo Ji, who was happily eating the roast duck roll, arched her brows. Silverhorned and Yu Ji were bewildered. The four prison overlords furrowed their brows. They slowed down their movements, turning their heads to look outside the restaurant. A terrifying and familiar aura diffused from outside the restaurant. Facing this aura, they couldn't help but change their countenances. This aura, it's serene long. Luo Ji stuffed the remaining roast duck roll into her mouth, pouting. This aura, it can't be wrong. Serene Long is here. Yu-Ji nodded. Inglong's appearance didn't come as a huge surprise to them. After all, the Lord Go had taken Inglong's void eye scepter away. Inglong had to come and retrieve it. The void eye scepter was the number one divine artifact among the 5 hell overlords. It possessed boundless power and was in charge of hell's justice. There was no way Inglong would allow it to wander about outside. Looks like we have to go out and take a look. Yu-Chi carried the overlord hefty sword on her back. She stood up from her seat, glancing at Jin Jiao and the others. After speaking, he headed outside. Silverhorn hurriedly followed. Jin Jiao and Luo Ji didn't want to leave. The roast duck was so delicious that they didn't want to part with it. Jin Jiao picked up the blue and white porcelain bowl, pouring all the soup into his mouth. The diced spirit herbs entered Jin Jiao's mouth, and as he chewed, crunching sounds rang out, like he was eating carrots. Well, not bad, Jin Jiao complimented. Then his giant body walked out of the restaurant. Shortly after, the 4 great prison overlords disappeared. Outside the restaurant, a white-haired old man with a stooped back silently walked over from a far distance. He didn't tear the void, nor did he shake the world. He just walked in the air, clasping his hands. His cyan robe fluttered in the wind. The old man's eyes were a little turbid, and he didn't look energetic at all. However, his pace was really fast. With one step, he seemed to cross hundreds of miles. In just a blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the Heaven Chief restaurant. Squeak! The restaurant's doors opened automatically. The Lord Go strode his elegant cat-like steps out of the restaurant. Standing at the door, he lifted his head, looking at the old man in the cyan robe hovering in the sky. His mouth twitched, snorting. The Lord Go's body continued to float, slowly ascending. Shortly after, he floated in front of the old man, facing him. Earth Prison Dog, long time no see. The stooped old man said faintly. His voice sounded old. Stinky Dragon. The Lord Go rolled his eyes. A smile appeared on the old man's wrinkled face, which made the hair on the Lord Go's body stand on end. Give the hollow eye staff back to me. This is the Heaven Chief realm. After all, I don't want to fight, the old man said. After saying that, the old man lifted his head. In just a blink of an eye, he felt the whole world become dark. The old man's eyes were golden in color, and his pupils were as sharp as a knife, slicing horizontally. The Lord Go yawned. He didn't mind the old man's gaze. You think the Lord Go, am scared? You dare to stare at the Lord Go. Now that the hollow eye staff is with me, shouldn't you lower your voice and talk to me? The Lord Go? The Lord Go raised his dog paw, moving his fingers. In the restaurant below, the door was pushed open one more time. Jean Jiao and the others appeared. Looking at the man and the dog facing each other in the void, they couldn't help but take in a breath of cold air. Inglong's eyes turned, falling on the four Earth prison overlords. You guys are really good. Seems like you're enjoying your meal, Inglong said in a hoarse voice, his wrinkled face smiling. Jean Jiao hurried to swallow the food in his mouth. He straightened his back, not daring to breathe loudly. Then, Inglong looked at the Lord Go one more time. You mangy dog, why are you clinging to my hollow eye staff? You can't control it. Give it back to me. So domineering. The Lord Go grinned. However, before he could finish his words, Inglong moved. His stooped body appeared in front of the Lord Go as if he had teleported. His palm, which looked like a withered tree, reached toward the Lord Go. Rumble, at this moment the void shook, shaking hard. With a slap, the Lord Go's figure disappeared. However, Inglong's palm had smashed the void where he used to be. Stinky dragon, you dare to attack me? The Lord Go roared. A moment later, his paw slapped. There was a loud bang. The Lord Go sent Inglong's figure flying, soaring into the sky. The Lord Go leaped high, chasing after him. In the void, a man and a dog were fighting. Down below, Jean Jiao and the others were watching with great interest. Yu-Ji, your fighting competence is the strongest. Can you tell who's stronger between Sir Inglong and the Lord Go? Jean Jiao wiped his mouth, asking with interest. Luo Ji rolled her eyes at Jean Jiao discontentedly. Of course my idol is stronger. That old farting Long. Yin Jiao pursed his lips, looking at Yu Ji. Whatever my baby says, Yu Ji was a little speechless, looking at the three of them. Then, she lifted her head, looking at the void. Her eyes flashed, as if she could see through the layers of clouds, seeing the battle between the Lord Go and Inglong. Sir Inglong often stays in Earth Prison, and he controls a part of Earth Prison's origin. If he cultivates according to Earth Prison's origin, his cultivation base shouldn't be weaker than the Lord Go's, Yu Ji said. The Lord Go leaves Earth Prison often, so his cultivation base might be lacking. Moreover, the Lord Go was wounded severely. So, you mean that the Lord Go can't defeat Sir Inglong? Asked Jean Jiao. Yu Ji's face twitched. Eventually, she nodded solemnly. Yes, Sir Inglong should be slightly stronger. Boom! As soon as she finished, the void suddenly trembled. A moment later, a figure fell from the sky, pounding hard on the ground. The ground exploded with a loud rumble, continuously shattering. The air suddenly quieted down. The four people standing in front of the restaurant were dumbstruck. After a long time, Jean Jiao blinked his eyes. If I'm not mistaken, the one who fell was Sir Inglong. It's only been a few seconds. Jean Jiao grinned. In the void, the Lord Go strode with his elegant cat-like steps, raising his dog paw. His arrogant and disdainful eyes looked down. Rumble-crushed stones rolled. Inglong's figure crawled out of the rubble on the ground. He stooped and coughed. After a while, Inglong lifted his head, his cold eyes gazing at the Lord Go. You black dog, I haven't seen you for many years, but your power has increased. Seems like your wounds have healed well. The Lord Go's mouth twitched. Raising his exquisite dog paw, he didn't say much, slapping at Inglong. Even the void was trembling. It began to shake violently. A dog's paw that was completely condensed from pitch-black nether energy suddenly slammed down toward Winged Dragon. A terrifying pressure and aura diffused. The four people standing in front of the restaurant felt their minds shiver. Worthy of being Luo Ji's idol. Luo Ji was so excited, biting her soft lips and balling her fists. Yu Ji's eyes were filled with fighting will. The Lord Go was her target. One day, she would grow to the level of the Lord Go. Only then would she have the confidence to find the source of the curse on you and cut it off. Actually, Eugene knew it clearly. The source of the curse on you should come from the nether prison. It was the most mysterious place in the netherworld's 3 prisons. You were brought back from the nether prison by the old Hades. If he wanted to know the source of the curse on you, he had to start from the nether prison. However, the nether prison was too terrifying. Without the power of the Lord Go, entering the nether prison was no different from seeking death. Yu's curse and the old Hades' death were all related to the nether prison. Boom! The dog paw landed on the ground. The ground exploded. In the restaurant, Bufong waved his hand, walking out of the restaurant. The Lord Go's battle had piqued Bufong's interest. The naked realm Lord Dit was also chewing on a roast duck roll, leaning against the door, watching the battle with interest. Nethery, who was at Bufong's side, also looked into the distance. The Lord Go's exquisite dog paw landed, and a terrifying hurricane blew. At this moment, the entire immortal city was panic-stricken. All of a sudden, an ear-splitting dragon roar rang out. The smoke and dust on the ground dispersed, and the nether energy dog paw was torn apart. On the ground, a giant creature emerged. A terrifying Inglong. Its pitch-black wings flapped, and there were even ferocious bone spikes on its wings. The pitch-black scales on its body bloomed with divine light. Its neck stretched out, and the dragon opened its mouth, letting out a furious roar. The dragon's mouth was full of sharp teeth, spewing black flames. Its strong and powerful limbs smashed on the ground, full of explosive power. "Mangy dog, return this old man my hollow eyes," the dragon roared. A moment later, its wings flapped, and Inglong's giant body shot up into the sky. A dragon flame spewed out, burning toward the Lord Go. A dragon and a dog fought once again, reaching the sky. The vault of heaven turned gray. Thunderous booms echoed unceasingly. Many people were watching the battle. Lord Inglong transformed into his true form. "Seems like he's really angry," Jin Jiao said in shock. As the Earth Prison overlords, they rarely had the chance to see Inglong's true form. Once Inglong transformed into his true form, it meant that Inglong was going to use his full power. Earth Prison Inglong, the strongest Earth Prison overlord in charge of Earth Prison's justice. TSK, TSK, TSK. Too bad. He met that mangy dog. The Heaven Chief Realm's heavenly path got bitten. Even the strongest Earth Prison overlord would have to suffer, Realm Lord Dit said as he shoved the duck roll into his mouth. Bufong looked at Realm Lord Dit. "You mean that the Lord Go should be able to win?" "Of course. He's a dog that can match this Realm Lord." Realm Lord Dit puffed out his chest, placing his hands on his waist as he said arrogantly. Bufong looked at him, his face emotionless. If he remembered correctly, the Lord Go had beaten this crazy man until his face was swollen. It seemed that Bufong's gaze sent chills down his spine. Realm Lord Dit changed his posture, looking at Bufong. "Little chef, let's not talk about this. Let's talk about becoming my apprentice. How about it? I can see that your innate talent isn't bad. Under my tutelage, I'm sure you can break through to the Qilin Chef realm." "Apprentice? Tutelage?" The corners of Bufong's mouth twitched, glancing at Realm Lord Dit. Not interested. Realm Lord Dit was bewildered. Suddenly, the void boomed. A moment later, a black dog grabbed the giant winged dragon's head and smashed it to the ground. Boom! Everybody was shocked. Chapter 1021. Everyone was shocked. The entire city was shocked. The scene that happened had already shaken the entire immortal city. The aristocratic families in the inner circle were all attracted by this battle. They watched from afar, their eyes filled with shock. After witnessing the Lord Go's fighting ability, Tong Wudi and the other family heads were even more shaken. This dog was as terrifying as ever. Fortunately, they didn't choose to attack it. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know how to write the word death now. This black dog was really too strong. Tong Wudi's face was gloomy, and his eyes were filled with deep fear. Not attacking that mortal chef with that black dog was the wisest decision we made. "Let's go according to plan," Tong Wudi heaved a sigh and said to the patriarchs of the other aristocratic families, "This storm didn't cause too much of a stir." The onlookers were separated by the city lord's mansion. Hence, for a moment, they didn't know what was happening. Many onlookers saw a dragon. They saw the legendary dragon being suppressed by a black dog. Many people were shocked, thinking that their eyes were playing tricks on them. However, after the city lord's mansion guards chased them away, the onlookers gradually dispersed. The battle seemed to be over. In front of the restaurant, everyone was watching the ruins with billowing smoke and dust. Among the ruins, a black dog walked out with enchanting cat-like steps. Its tail wagged, showing that the Lord Go was very happy at this moment. On the ground, a trembling figure crawled up. Inglong had once again returned to his human form. However, this time, he was no longer as calm and composed as before. His face was bruised and swollen, and the green robe on his body was even more tattered. However, the old man was holding a pitch-black scepter in his hand. It was the hollow eye scepter. Although Inglong was seriously injured, he still used some tricks to retrieve the scepter from the Lord Go. Holding the scepter, Inglong's nose was bleeding, and his face was a little black. Although Inglong wanted to flare up, when he thought about the Lord Go's current strength and cultivation, he decided to let it go. The black dog's injuries had healed quite well, and its battle prowess had grown even stronger. There was no need to fight with this mangy dog until both sides suffered. Besides, this mangy dog hasn't even used his full strength. Can't you see that he hasn't even revealed his true form? Lord Inglong, are you all right? Jin Jiao looked at Inglong, who was trembling and holding the hollow eye scepter, and asked cautiously, "What could possibly happen to me? It's just a small injury, not worth mentioning." Inglong wiped his nosebleed, showing an indifferent expression on his old face as he glanced at Jin Jiao. "On the other hand, have you had enough fun? It's time to return to Hell. As Hell Masters, there's still a lot of things waiting for you to deal with," Inglong said. The faces of Jin Jiao and the others changed, smiling awkwardly. Inglong leaned on the scepter, looking deeply at the Lord Go. "What are you looking at? Do you still want to fight?" The Lord Go was lying in front of the restaurant, his mouth twitching as he said faintly. Inglong slammed the scepter, anger surging in his heart as he glared at the Lord Go. The man and the dog's gazes collided in the air. "One day, Lord Go, I will rip off your stinky dragon wings and make sweet and sour dragon ribs for young Bufong." The Lord Go snorted. Inglong's eyes widened, anger appearing on his face. "Cough, cough. Lord Go, the meat on the wings isn't suitable for making sweet and sour dragon ribs. I'm afraid you have to change the position. For example, the meat in the middle of the wings. That's not bad." Bufong looked at the Lord Go and kindly reminded him. The Lord Go was a little bewildered. He only knew that the sweet and sour dragon ribs were delicious, but he didn't know that the meat was so picky. As Inglong watched the man and the dog chatting about which part of his body was suitable for making sweet and sour ribs, the anger in his heart surged. However, he was a wily old fox. As the Earth Prison's administrator, he was still shrewd. After calming down his raging state of mind, Lin Fanninglong glanced at Bufong and the Lord Go. Turning around, wielding the scepter, he tore a hole in the void. "All of you, go back to Earth Prison." Inglong looked at the 4 Earth Prison overlords, snorting coldly. Then, he stepped into the void, disappearing. Jin Jiao rubbed his head, grinned, and licked his lips. He wanted to savor the roast duck roll. He didn't think that he would have to go back now. However, since Inglong had spoken, they had to obey. Thus, Jin Jiao stepped into the crack first. Luo Ji waved at the Lord Go. "Idle. Luo Ji is leaving. You must miss her." "Idle. Luo Ji is leaving. Can you fulfill a small request?" The Lord Go looked at Luo Ji, his mouth twitching. "No, I'll beat you up if you ask again." He didn't need to guess to know that this woman wanted the dog's fur. The smart Lord Go had already seen through everything. "Hey, you mangy dog. You're so stingy. It's just a strand of dog fur. It's not easy for that little girl to come here, right?" Realm Lord Dit said solemnly as he approached the Lord Go. "Do you want to fight? If the fur doesn't grow on your body, you won't feel heartache, right?" The Lord Go glared at the Dit Realm Lord, snorting coldly. I don't feel bad. The Dit Realm Lord ran his fingers through his blonde hair, his eyes blurry. To this, the Lord Go rolled his eyes. Not getting Lord Go's dog fur, Luo Ji was a little down. She felt betrayed. Covering her face, she dashed into the crack, returning to Earth Prison. Baby, Yin Jiao is waiting for you. We'll go together. I'll accompany you. Yin Jiao came to Yu Qi, blinking his eyes. Yu Qi looked at Yin Jiao, her face emotionless. A moment later, the heavy sword fell into her hand. She furiously slashed at Yin Jiao. Bang! Yin Jiao was sent flying, entering the crack. Little girl, good aim. The Dit Realm Lord's eyes brightened. Yu Qi didn't mind the Dit Realm Lord. She walked directly to Bufang, her eyes gazing at Bufang. Bufang was a little flustered under her gaze. Buzz. A moment later, the formation that was used to check the curse on you emerged in Yu Qi's hand. Give me your hand, Yu Qi said to Bufang. Bufang didn't have a choice but to extend his Tao Tai arm. The formation disappeared into Bufang's Tao Tai arm. Yu Qi exhaled. This formation can check the situation of the curse on you. You have to pay attention to it. If the curse turns purple, bring you to Earth Prison to find me. If the cursed snake wakes up, you have to use your food to suppress it. Yu Qi advised. As Yu's older sister, she didn't want anything bad to happen to you. Bufang nodded. If you stayed, Bufang would definitely suppress the curse on you. After saying that, Yu Ji's eyes fell on Nethery. She reached out her hand, patting Yu's head. Wait for me. I will definitely help you destroy the source of the curse. Yu Qi said. Yu nodded. Then, Yu Qi didn't do anything else. She turned around and walked toward the void crack. When she reached the entrance, she seemed to remember something. She turned to look at Lord Go. Believe in Lord Go, and you will have eternal life. Roar. With a roar, Yu Qi stepped into the crack. Lord Go was startled. He was bewildered. After the Earth Prison overlords left, the scene became a little quiet. Gongshu Baiguang and the others looked at the scene, not daring to breathe loudly. Realm Overlord Dit flicked his hair, his eyes blurry. It's almost time for this Realm Overlord to go back. Little brother Bufang, your dishes aren't bad, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. Are you really not going to consider becoming this Realm Overlord's disciple? It's free training. Realm Overlord Dit's eyes eagerly fell on Bufang. The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched. Training your sister, not even if you beat him to death. I refuse, said Bufang. All right, it's a pity. There is a sincere feeling in front of you, but you didn't cherish it. Realm Overlord Dit rubbed his forehead, sighing. A moment later, he looked at Bufang again, pointing at his eyes, and then at Bufang. Little brother, this Realm Overlord favors you. We will meet again. I hope that the next time we meet, you can give me more surprises. Realm Overlord Dit smiled. His handsome face had golden hair hanging down. Then, Realm Overlord Dit walked to the ruins outside the restaurant. Glancing at Lord Go, who was lying on the ground, he snorted arrogantly. Boom! The ground suddenly trembled. Realm Overlord Dit posed, as if he was thinking. His naked body bloomed with holy light, shooting up into the sky like a cannonball. Soon, he turned into a star in the sky. After flashing for a while, he disappeared. This Realm Overlord will miss you, little brother Bufang. A wave of echoes echoed. Bufang's mouth twitched. Was there something wrong with his brain? Everyone turned around and returned to the restaurant. On Lord Go's seat, there was a piece of roast duck roll. Lord Go was happily eating it. The Realm Overlord had left, but Gongshu Baiguang and City Lord Mu Yang hadn't left yet. This made Bufang a little surprised. Since the roast duck was finished and the Mad Realm Overlord had left, what else did they want to do? Facing Bufang's slightly doubtful gaze, Gongshu Baiguang and City Lord Mu Yang exchanged looks, seeing the light in each other's eyes. Cough, cough! City Lord Mu Yang coughed dryly, then looked at Bufang with a serious expression. Owner Bu's cooking skills are really good. Among the younger generation, he can be considered one of the best. Bufang didn't say anything, just looking at City Lord Mu Yang. Facing the city lord, Bufong's attitude wasn't bad. After all, not long after, Bufong planned to go to the Mu family to kidnap a future apprentice to complete the system's temporary task. After completing the temporary task, he would receive the enhanced abyssal chili sauce as a reward. The current abyssal chili sauce couldn't keep up with Bufong's pace. Would this enhanced version surprise Bufong? Owner Bu, it's like this. I have a request. City Lord Mu Yang smiled as he said to Bufong. What is it? Bufong was slightly bewildered. Today I saw Owner Bu's cooking skills, and it's really amazing. Not long after, the Heaven Chief Realm's quadrennial Heaven Chief competition among the younger generation will begin. I want Owner Bu to represent the first layer of the Heaven Chief Realm. City Lord Mu Yang said. Participate in the competition? Bufong was stunned, then pursed his lips. Boring. What's the benefit of participating in the competition? Bufong asked. Of course there are benefits. If Owner Bu can enter the top 100 in this competition, it will be a supreme glory. City Lord Mu Yang said. Glory can help me improve my cooking skills? If that's the only benefit, participating in the competition is simply a waste of time, Bufong said with an expressionless face. In the distance, Gong Shu Baiguang furrowed his brows, then said, If Owner Bu is talking about rewards, then of course, there will be rewards. The top 50 in the Heaven Chief competition will receive immortal ingredients from the Heaven Tree as a reward. The higher the ranking, the higher the grade of the immortal ingredients. The top 10 in the Heaven Chief competition will have a chance to enter the space of the Heaven Tree to comprehend the cooking path. Moreover, the rewards will be more generous. Gong Shu Baiguang said, I heard that the reward for the first place is a top-grade immortal ingredient, true dragon meat. True dragon meat? Bufong's mind suddenly froze, and he raised his head. A moment later, the serious voice of the system resounded in Bufong's head. Chapter 1022. The system's solemn voice rang out at this moment. Bufong was a little dumbstruck. Why did the system's voice always sound so coincidental? According to the current situation, the system wanted him to participate in the competition again. However, the prize for the champion of this competition was actually true dragon meat. That was a true dragon. A divine beast true dragon should be of a higher level than Yinglong. How could such a level of dragon meat appear here? Temporary mission. Host, please participate in the Heaven Chief World's Young Heaven Chief competition. Enter the top 10 and obtain the qualification to enter the space of the Heaven Tree and obtain the seed of the Heaven Tree in the space of the Heaven Tree. Temporary mission reward. The qualification to fuse with the immortal flame. What? Bufong was a little surprised. The system's mission this time wasn't to let him become the champion of the competition. According to Baiguang, as long as he entered the top 10, he would be qualified to enter the space of the Heaven Tree. However, he was supposed to enter the space of the Heaven Tree to comprehend the Great Path. How did it become entering the space of the Heaven Tree to obtain the seed? The seed of the Heaven Tree. It sounded like an extraordinary thing. And this time, the reward was the qualification to fuse with the immortal flame. Such an illusory thing. Had the system learned how to get something without risking anything? Temporary mission. Host, please participate in the Young Heaven Chief World's Heaven Chief competition and condense the heart of cooking path. Temporary mission reward. A fragment of the God of Cooking set. However, before Bufong could pull himself together, the system's voice rang out again. This time, the voice made Bufong completely dumbfounded. Another temporary mission. 2 temporary missions appeared at the same time. This wasn't like the system's style. Condense the heart of cooking path. What is the heart of cooking path? Bufong furrowed his brows, feeling somewhat puzzled. He asked the system, but the system didn't answer him. Apparently, it wanted him to figure out himself. The reward of the second temporary mission made Bufong even more excited. A fragment of the God of Cooking set. Bufong had collected 4 fragments of the God of Cooking set. With one more fragment, he could exchange for the next God of Cooking set. Therefore, Bufong suddenly felt that he was determined to get this reward. Rubbing his chin, Bufong fell in a deep thought. Gongshu Baiguang and City Lord Mu Yang looked at each other and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. Was Bufong moved? It seemed that it was possible to persuade Bufong to participate in this competition. Based on Bufong's previous cooking skills, he was able to trigger 3 thunder tribulations, which was considered pretty good among the younger generation of the Heaven Chief realm. At the very least, it shouldn't be a problem to enter the top 100. The Heaven Chief realm was divided into 5 levels. The first level was the lowest level of the Heaven Chief realm. It couldn't be helped. After all, it was due to the terrain. The higher one climbed, the more resources the Heaven Tree provided. At the bottom of the Heaven Tree, the resources were pitifully little. In the previous Heaven Chief realm Youth Heaven Chief competition, the best result in the first level of the Heaven Chief realm was only the 90th place. And in the recent Heaven Chief Youth competition, it was even worse. None of them entered the top 100. This had seriously affected the atmosphere of the first level of the Heaven Chief realm, the Heaven Chief realm, and this was the one where they had the best chance. Because there were many monstrous geniuses among the big families this time. Whether it was the Zhang family, the Tong family, or the Gongshu family, their young Heaven Chief geniuses were all very talented. Therefore, this year's competition had the best chance to enter the top 100. Moreover, there was also Bufong, the Heaven Chief, who could trigger 3 thunder tribulations. Honorbu, what do you think? City Lord Mu Yang's mouth curved into a smile, looking at Bufong. They really hoped that Bufong could participate in the competition. No matter what, they had seen Bufong's talent with their own eyes. Participate? Sure, but I have a small request. Bufong suddenly looked at City Lord Mu Yang, saying casually, "What request? As long as it's within my ability, I will agree." City Lord Mu Yang frowned. It's not a difficult request. Although my restaurant has just opened, I still lack an apprentice chef. Thus, I want to find an apprentice chef, said Bufong. When City Lord Mu Yang heard this, he was stunned. He looked at Gongshu Baiguang, and the two looked at each other. What kind of request was that? In the distance, Gongshu Ban, Mu Luer, and the others were also a little suspicious. Honorbu always did things beyond people's expectations. So, Honorbu wants to find an apprentice chef? Sure, I can ask all the talented special grade chefs in the city for you to choose, said Mu Yang. To be honest, Bufong's request wasn't really a request. It was even simpler than asking for an immortal ingredient. However, Bufong shook his head. His eyes were a little strange as he looked at City Lord Mu Yang. That look made City Lord Mu Yang startled. You want me to be your apprentice chef? That's impossible. City Lord Mu Yang shook his head, waving his hand. Although I'm the weakest among the 5 great city lords of the Heaven Chief realm, it's because the previous city lord had fallen. I was in a hurry to take over, so I didn't have time to practice my cooking skills. However, my cooking skills are at the 3rd grade Heaven Chief realm. I'm afraid that Honorbu can't afford to be your apprentice chef. City Lord Mu Yang smiled and said. Bufong was a little speechless. This city lord's comprehension ability was a little bit problematic. He was so old, but Bufong still didn't like him. You're thinking too much. I've already chosen someone, and that person is in your Mu family, said Bufong indifferently, his face expressionless. I agreed to participate in the competition. Come and find me when the competition starts. Haha, if it's not me, then it's easy. You can choose any young generation in my Mu family. It's their honor to be able to become Honorbu's apprentice chef. City Lord Mu Yang laughed, stroking his beautiful beard. Then, under Bufong's gaze, the crowd left. In the distance, Lord Go had already finished eating the roast duck roll, licking his claws. Hua was in a deep sleep, and she hadn't woken up yet. The Black Dragon King was there with her. Yu quietly followed behind Bufong. After the crowd left, the restaurant became a little quiet. Bufong pulled a chair, curling up in front of the restaurant. He exhaled contentedly. The quietness and comfort after being busy were the most enjoyable. Bufong, young man, are you really going to participate in the Heaven Chief competition? In the distance, Lord Go, who was lying on the ground, suddenly asked Bufong. Bufong was curled up in the chair, looking quite lazy. Yeah, then you brat, you have to work harder. There are many benefits if you can enter the space of the Heaven Tree. If it weren't for the fact that the Heaven Tree doesn't welcome Lord Go would still want to enter the space of the Heaven Tree to play, said Lord Go. Bufong was slightly stunned. He suddenly remembered that Realm Lord Dit had said that Lord Go had taken a bite of the Great Path of the Heaven Chief Realm. That Great Path wouldn't be in the space of the Heaven Tree, right? I heard that the prize for the first place is true dragon meat. Bufong brat, work harder and win back that dragon meat. Lord Go is waiting for the sweet and sour ribs cooked with true dragon meat. Lord Go has high hopes for you. Lord Go lay on the ground. After eating his fill, Lord Go lazily put his head on the ground, speaking casually. The corners of Bufong's mouth twitched. This was Lord Go's goal. He wanted to eat the sweet and sour ribs. Anyway, true dragon meat. Bufong suddenly had some expectations. It seemed that he could really win the first place in this competition for fun. Bufong thought to himself. Time flew. The restaurant returned to its usual tranquility. It was still open every day. Since Hua had swallowed a piece of top-grade immortal tofu, he was in a deep sleep. His body was shrouded by a hazy energy. Lord Go seemed to have moved too much the last time, so he had been lying on the ground for the past few days. He was too lazy to move. Nethery was very carefree, walking back and forth in the restaurant. Occasionally, she would return to the Netherworld ship and sit on the deck, pondering about something. This kind of peaceful days made Bufong feel very satisfied. Because he had passed the system's true immortal realm test, Bufong's cultivation base had successfully advanced from the peak of divine spirit realm to the true immortal realm. To others, this was a hurdle that was hard to cross. To Bufong, he had quietly broken through. After his cultivation base had broken through, Bufong's cooking skills didn't change much. His mental energy cultivation base didn't increase that much, but it could still be compared to a 2-star true immortal realm expert. If he fused with the tool spirit in his head, Bufong's mental energy could reach the 3-star or even 4-star true immortal realm. During this period, Bufong began to learn how to use the Golden Lotus demonic flame. This immortal flame had been nurtured by Tong Ruo, and it had reached the level of the top 50 immortal flames in the immortal flame ranking. Its power wasn't bad. Bufong was very satisfied. This kind of immortal flame could only be ranked 50th. Bufong was a little curious. How strong and terrifying the immortal flames that were ranked high on the immortal flame ranking were. It was really difficult to fuse with the immortal flames. However, Bufong thought that as long as he completed the temporary task, he would receive the qualification to fuse with the immortal flames provided by the system. It turned out that this illusory reward was used for this purpose. It seemed like the system also wanted his immortal flames to improve. However, Bufong thought about it and understood. As his cooking skills improved, the Golden Lotus demonic flame would be like the previous heaven and earth obsidian flame, which couldn't keep up with his level. And at this time, he needed a stronger flame. Bufong believed that the immortal flame of each Qilin chef would be at the peak level. Like Realm Lord Dit's immortal flame, it was hard to imagine. Of course, during these peaceful days, besides running the restaurant, practicing his flame control and his cutting immortal style, Bufong also went to the Mu family's residence to continue his teaching. And this time, he was going to choose his apprentice chef. He had cast a net, so it was time to retract it. And who should he choose as his apprentice chef? After a long time of testing and analysis, he had already gotten the answer. That day, Bufong quietly reclined on the chair. He was leisurely rocking. Today's business had ended, and Bufong had finished practicing his knife skill. He enjoyed the rare tranquility and leisure. However, just as he was closing his eyes to take a nap, in the distance, there was a figure rushing over at high speed. With a squeak, he pushed the restaurant's door open. The figure entered the restaurant and heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Bufong, who was sitting on a chair, taking a nap. Mulur looked at Bufong, who was sleeping leisurely, and she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Ownerbu, the second-layer genius team of the Heaven Chief World's Heaven Chief team, has come to our first layer. Right now, They are holding a cooking discussion in the city lord's mansion. Owner Bu, you should prepare to go there. Mu Luer's words made Bu Fong open his sleepy eyes. Why should I go? Mu Luer was bewildered. The Tong family and the Zhang family said a lot about you to the second-layer genius team of the Heaven Chief World's Heaven Chief team. They also described you as extremely arrogant. Those second-layer Heaven Chief are very angry now, and they want you to go there. They want to compete with you in cooking. Mu Luer sighed and said, Owner Bu, didn't you agree to participate in the Heaven Chief competition? It's necessary to go there. After all, you can understand the second-layer Heaven Chief standard. Bu Fong, who was sitting on the chair, opened his mouth wide and yawned. His gaze landed on Mu Luer. Just because they want me to go, does that mean I have to go? I agreed to participate, but it doesn't mean I have to go to the competition. I don't need to understand the Heaven Chief standard. Go back and tell them that I'm very busy now. I don't have time. After saying that, he yawned again, curled up his body on the chair, found an angle, and continued to lie down. Chapter 1023. Not free. Mu Luer was a little speechless as she looked at Bu Fong, who was lying on the chair and yawning. He didn't look like he was busy at all. Does he look like he's not free? If you want to find an excuse, you should at least find a more reliable one. Mu Luer was a little speechless as she rubbed her forehead. However, looking at Bu Fong's posture, he really didn't want to go, and Mu Luer didn't have a good impression of those second-layer Heaven Chief. Although those Heaven Chief said that they were here to discuss, they looked down on them as if their eyes were on top of their heads. Only the Heaven Chief of the Tong and Zhang families nodded and bowed as they followed behind those people. Gong Shuban, Xinyuan Xiaohui, and the others were like Bu Fong, so they didn't go. Mu Luer was the daughter of the city lord, so she didn't want to go either. However, she still had to be polite. Although Mu Yang was the city lord, he was the weakest among the 5 city lords of the Heaven Chief realm. He was also the easiest to be banned. Because Mu Yang had a lot of requirements, he didn't have the qualifications to be a city lord. To become a city lord, first of all, he had to have the corresponding strength. Secondly, he had to have the corresponding cooking skills. Before Mu Yang became the city lord, the first-layer city lord was a Qilin chef. He was one of the 5 Qilin chefs of the Heaven Chief realm, the top chef. And now, Mu Yang's cooking skills were only at the 3rd-grade Heaven Chief. In the Heaven Chief realm, although there weren't many 3rd-grade Heaven Chief, there were still dozens of them, especially the higher echelons of the Heaven Chief realm. The number of 3rd-grade Heaven Chief realms was even more. Mu Luer also pulled a chair, sitting beside Bu Fong. She copied Bu Fong's posture, curling up on the chair. I have to say, it's really comfortable like this. I don't need to think about anything and just watch the flowers bloom and wilt, Mu Luer muttered. It's really comfortable. After the business hours and cooking practice, I will come here to lie down for a while to relax, Bu Fong said. He turned his head to look at Mu Luer. He could feel her exhaustion. You don't want me to go to that conference? Bu Fong asked. If you don't want to go, then don't go. Those people are really annoying. Anyway, I'm going to participate in the competition. Help me beat them up. Mu Luer said with a grin. Mu Luer isn't very good looking. Compared to you, she can be described as ugly. Perhaps this was the DNA of the Mu family. A cooking competition isn't a fight. Beating someone up is too violent. Can't you be more polite? Bu Fong pursed his lips. Mu Luer froze. What else? I'll help you defeat them, Bu Fong said. Mu Luer, I'm looking forward to the Heaven Chief competition, Bu Fong said. Anticipation? What? Mu Luer furrowed her brows, looking at Bu Fong. Because the reward for this competition is true dragon meat. If a chef wants to improve, he must try cooking higher-grade ingredients. That way, his vision will broaden, and his cooking skills will become more exquisite. Of course, I'm also looking forward to the Heaven Tree space, Bu Fong said. However, Mu Luer was silent. The Heaven Tree space is the most important place in the Heaven Chief realm. Owner Bu, if you can enter, you must be careful, Mu Luer said. It's the most important place. Why should I be careful? Is there any danger? Bu Fong was puzzled, looking at Mu Luer. Danger? Of course. Do you know how the city lord of the first layer died? He died in the heaven tree space. Muluer said gloomily. This was obviously a secret that not many people knew. Bufong was a little surprised. The city lord of the immortal city, an existence at the Chilan chef level, had died in the heaven tree space? The air suddenly became quiet. The two of them did not say anything. Muluer stood up from her chair. After saying goodbye to Bufong, she left the restaurant. Soon, her figure disappeared from the street. After Muluer left, the night gradually fell. The night in the Heaven Chief realm was not very beautiful. There were no stars in the sky, and there was no moon. It was pitch black, and one could not even see their own fingers. However, the night in the immortal city decorated the lonely night with beauty. The lights flickered, and the stars shone brightly. The Heaven Chief restaurant's location was a little remote. At this place, the lights had become very dim. In the distance, a group of people slowly walked over. This group of people were all wearing neat chef robes. Under the cover of the night, their figures seemed a little vague. However, from this group of people, a terrible aura spread out. Oh, is this the small restaurant you were talking about? It's really small and pitiful. A slightly lazy voice sounded, and a figure slowly emerged from the darkness. This was a man with long green hair. He had a sharp chin, and he was wearing a neat chef robe. His face had an arrogant expression. Your Excellency Xiao Buchuan, this is the restaurant of the chef that the city lord is optimistic about. He is considered to have the highest chance of entering the top 100 of the Heaven Chief competition. A somewhat flattering voice sounded. Then, the green-haired man slowly walked toward the Heaven Chief restaurant. There was a knife in the man's hand. It was a shining, steel-gray knife that constantly rotated in his hand. Since we're here for a discussion, we naturally have to find the strongest chef. What's there to discuss with trash like you? Xiao Buchuan grinned, playing with the knife in his hand. As the knife rotated, it seemed to have a sharp gust of wind whistling out. Tong Shui looked at Xiao Buchuan with a sullen expression. This incomparably arrogant guy in front of him was one of the members of the Heaven Chief team that the second layer had sent to the first layer for a discussion. He had to admit that his cooking skills were really strong. They had heard that he had already touched the threshold of the second grade Heaven Chief competition. He was even stronger than Gongshu Ban. However, this person was too arrogant. He didn't put the Heaven Chief team of the first layer in his eyes at all. In other words, the members of the Heaven Chief team that had come this time were all arrogant. The others were even more arrogant than Xiao Buchuan. But he did have the capital to be arrogant. As the genius Heaven Chief of the Tong family, Tong Shui's talent was much stronger than Tong Cheng's. However, when he faced Xiao Buchuan, he felt a huge pressure. This pressure made his hand, which was holding the knife, tremble a little. It's that small restaurant. I want to see how strong the strongest young Heaven Chief of the first layer is. Xiao Buchuan's hand shook, and a spirit herb root appeared. He held it in his mouth, slowly walking toward the Heaven Chief restaurant. A group of people followed behind him, quickly crowding around him as they arrived in front of the Heaven Chief restaurant. It was already late at night. The doors of the small restaurant were tightly shut. However, from the crack in the door, they could see that there were lights on inside, which meant that there were people inside. You? Knock on the door and call them out for me. Xiao Buchuan held the grass root in his mouth as he indifferently said. Tong Shui's brows arched. Then, the corners of his mouth curled up as he excitedly stepped forward. Family head Tong Wudi had told him that he couldn't use force to deal with this restaurant, but he didn't say that he couldn't use his cooking skills to crush it. As long as he could crush that mortal chef in cooking, he could represent the Tong family and mercilessly laugh at that mortal chef. That kind of comfortable feeling made him excited just thinking about it. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and call them out. Xiao Buchuan bit the grass root as he looked at Tong Shui, who was standing in front of the door and smiling foolishly. He furrowed his brows. Tong Shui froze for a moment, and terrifying true energy burst out from his body. He aimed a punch at the tightly shut door. Tong Shui was a 2-star true immortal realm expert. Of course, his cultivation was built up by using spirit herbs. Compared to Tong Mu's combat strength, he was much weaker. Basically, many Heaven Chief's cultivation was built up by using spirit herbs. If one wanted to become a high-grade Heaven Chief, one's cultivation must be able to keep up. In this punch, Tong Shui displayed his 2-star true immortal realm cultivation to its fullest. There was even a burst of vital energy in his hands. His fist landed on the restaurant's door. Tong Shui had a feeling that this punch of his could even blow up a small mountain, let alone a broken door. However, his fist landed on the door, but it didn't cause any ripples. Everyone blinked their eyes as they looked at him. Xiao Buchuan held the grass root in his mouth as he rolled his eyes. The people on the first floor were too weak. They couldn't even break open a door. Tong Shui was a little embarrassed. Then, he got so angry that he couldn't even break open a door. This broken door actually dared to make him lose face. True energy rose once more, condensing on his fist as he punched out once more. However, a muffled sound rang out, but nothing happened to the door. There's something strange. Tong Shui wasn't a fool. If 2 punches from a 2-star true immortal realm expert couldn't break open a door, it was enough to show that something was strange. Xiao Buchuan's mouth twitched. Suddenly, a faint voice rang out from within the restaurant. Today's business hours have ended. If you want to eat, please come back tomorrow. Everyone on the scene was slightly stunned. He's really arrogant. Xiao Buchuan spat out the grass root that had its essence sucked clean. He bared his teeth, and his gaze fell on the restaurant with a hint of disdain. Pretending to be profound, Xiao Buchuan took a step forward, and the true qi on his body suddenly curled up, unceasingly gathering on his palm, and finally turned into an energy ball full of explosive true qi. Come out or else I'll break the door, Xiao Buchuan indifferently said. In the first floor of the Heaven Chief world, there was actually someone who dared to act cool in front of him. However, no one responded to Xiao Buchuan. Tong Shui and the others looked at each other in dismay. Tong Shui thought for a moment, then said, "This is Xiao Buchuan, a genius from the 2nd floor of the Heaven Chief world. He's a distinguished guest to the city Lord's mansion. You can't be rude and lose the face of our 1st floor." As his words fell, the atmosphere became quiet. I said that the business hours are over. If you want to eat, come back tomorrow. Are you deaf? The faint voice once again floated out from the restaurant. Tong Shui suddenly stopped. Xiao Buchuan grinned and narrowed his eyes. The next moment, he took a step forward, and the energy ball in his hand smashed toward the restaurant's door. Its power was extremely terrifying. The void seemed to distort under the rotating energy ball. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. Open for me. Boom! Xiao Buchuan's fist smashed down. Its speed was extremely fast, and its power was astonishing. Along with Xiao Buchuan's roar, a distant creaking sound rang out. The closed door of the restaurant suddenly opened. An explosive sound rang out. Xiao Buchuan's fist suddenly smashed into a chubby iron puppet, and the energy dissipated. Earth Immortal Puppet! Looking at Xiao Bai standing at the door, the group of people revealed a trace of a smile. Sure enough, that mortal chef still gave in. The face of the 2nd floor's genius Heaven Chief was really big. The corner of Xiao Buchuan's mouth curled up. Wasn't it better to do this earlier? The people of the 1st floor were really cheap. You're smart. I heard that your cooking skills were praised by the 1st layer city lord, so I won't say anything more. Come out and ask me for advice. Let me see the strongest young, immortal chef of the 1st layer. Xiao Buchuan rubbed his arm. Then he played with the knife in his hand as he walked toward the restaurant. However, just as he took a step forward, the iron puppet's palm, which was like a palm fan, fell on his body. Xiao Buchuan froze. Tong Shui and the others were also stunned. Xiao Bai, strip them for me and throw them out. Throw them far away. Recently, I've seen too many naked bodies of that fool, and the others can't enter my eyes. What? Everyone was stunned. Xiao Buchuan furrowed his brows. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes suddenly flashed with the brilliance of stars and lightning. Troublemakers will be stripped as an example to others. Chapter 1024. Strip as an example to others. Xiao Buchuan was stunned by the words that came out of Xiao Bai's mouth. Then, he suddenly burst into laughter. His laughter was full of ridicule. A mere earth immortal puppet dares to be so arrogant, Xiao Buchuan said with a grin. The next moment, his eyes burst out with brilliance. The second layer of the Heaven Chief Realm's Heaven Chief Realm not only crushed the first layer's cooking skills, but also in terms of cultivating fighting strength. It was much stronger than the first layer's Heaven Chief Realm's immortal herbs. In Xiao Buchuan's impression, the first layer's Earth Immortal puppets were basically trash. Having a one-star true Immortal Realm Earth Immortal puppet was basically the limit. And for Xiao Buchuan, a one-star true Immortal Realm Earth Immortal puppet could be killed with a flip of his hand. Therefore, he felt that the arrogant words of this Earth Immortal puppet were ridiculous. Strip, let's see if I, your father, will peel off your iron skin. His feet suddenly stomped on the ground. Xiao Buchuan's figure actually turned over and stood up. His legs clamped Xiao Bai's arm. This move is called Hanging Star Hook. Fall for me. Xiao Buchuan's eyes revealed a sharp light. True energy flowed into his legs, and his legs suddenly exerted force, wanting to pull Xiao Bai's arm off. He had used this move to destroy many Earth Immortal puppets. In the second layer of the Heaven Chief Realm, the strength of the Earth Immortal puppet was much stronger than the first layer. In fact, the difference in strength between the second, third, and fourth layers of the Heaven Chief Realm was not big, and they were also the main competitors. And because the Heaven Chief Realm had the best terrain, the fifth layer's spirit energy and various resources were the best in the Heaven Chief Realm. Therefore, the fifth layer cultivated the most geniuses in the Heaven Chief Realm. For example, in the last Heaven Chief competition's top 10, 8 of them came from the Heaven Chief Realm. That was the fear of being dominated. A powerful Earth Immortal puppet was a rarity in the first level, but in the higher levels of the Heaven Chief Realm, it was a very important component. That was because the Heaven Tree would bear fruits every month, and those fruits would open Earth Immortal puppets. These Earth Immortal puppets were different from the fake goods on the first floor. Those Earth Immortal puppets could help the Heaven Chief resist the lightning punishment. Furthermore, there was also the appearance of a Celestial Immortal puppet, which was in existence even stronger than an Earth Immortal puppet. Xiao Buchuan was very confident that he would be able to crush a first-layer Earth Immortal puppet. However, soon, Xiao Buchuan's eyes widened. A look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. His upside-down star hook didn't even break the arm of this Earth Immortal puppet. It didn't even shake this iron puppet. Xiao Bai slightly tilted his head, then fiercely swung it. Xiao Buchuan's figure was thrown out like a fly. After saying that, Bu Fong didn't say anything else. White Yi's eyes also shone brightly. Boom! Xiao Bai's feet suddenly burst out with power. Then he shot out like a cannonball, dashing into the crowd in just a blink of an eye. Those aristocratic families' Heaven Chief had never seen such a scene before. They were just here to watch the fun. They didn't expect that Xiao Bai would actually target them. Tong Shui looked at Xiao Bai, who had appeared in front of him in just a blink of an eye, his face bewildered. No, it's none of my business. Tong Shui's face was almost scrunched up. Then, Xiao Bai's fan-like palm kept enlarging in his eyes. A tearing sound rang out. Then, it was followed by a scream. Tong Shui felt a cool and refreshing feeling on his body. It was the feeling of a gentle breeze blowing through his private parts. His palm was numb. Tong Shui opened his eyes and saw that his whole body was naked. His face darkened. Don't hit people's faces and don't strip people's clothes. This Earth Immortal puppet had no moral principles. Facing Xiao Bai, Tong Shui, who had a 2-star true Immortal Realm cultivation base, could have resisted. However, he didn't have the courage to resist. Thus, he was stripped naked by Xiao Bai. Suddenly, he was flung far away. Xiao Bai always carried out Bu Fong's principle of throwing things far away. Hence, Tong Shui felt that he was flying high up in the sky. Under the bright lights of the immortal city, all kinds of cool and refreshing sensations. In the next instant, with a thud, he fell into the downtown area far away. When the passers-by saw the naked Tong, Shui, descending from the sky, they all surrounded him. That seems to be the Tong family's genius heaven chief. Was he stripped naked and running around? Interesting. From the direction where Tong Shui fell, this guy can't be looking for trouble with Owner Bu, right? The mortal heaven chief Owner Bu is a legendary figure. Even the Tong family's head chose to retreat. Is this genius heaven chief's brain filled with shit? The surrounding onlookers recognized Tong Shui, and they couldn't stop muttering. Tong Shui's cheeks were streaming with tears. He was just going to be a bystander. In front of the restaurant, Xiao Bai's movements were incomparably agile. His fan-like big hand waved unceasingly. Every time he waved, the sound of clothes tearing could be heard. In the next instant, a naked figure flew across the sky, drawing an arc in the sky, and smashed into the crowd. Xiao Bai's strength was very great, so he was thrown very far away. The surrounding onlookers looked at the naked figures falling from the sky, and they all looked like they were watching a good show, because they realized that those people who were stripped were actually the famous heaven chief of the immortal city. Some came from aristocratic families, and some joined aristocratic families. Xiao Buchuan's eyes widened. Looking at Xiao Bai, who was stripping the heaven chief's clothes, his whole body tightened, and he felt a chill. There's actually such a perverted, earth immortal puppet in this world. This was the first time he saw this kind of earth immortal puppet that stripped people's clothes. After Xiao Bai stripped those heaven chief's clothes, his mechanical eyes flickered, and his gaze fell on Xiao Buchuan in the distance. Xiao Buchuan waved the knife in his hand, and there was a dignified look in his eyes. This earth immortal puppet is a little extraordinary. It's comparable to the second layer earth immortal puppet. It seems like I have to show my real skills. Xiao Buchuan said seriously. In the next moment, the knife in his hand turned and fell into his hand. True energy burst out, and his figure sped out like lightning. It was aimed at several joints of Xiao Bai. The most effective way to deal with an earth immortal puppet was to cut off its joints. In this way, the earth immortal puppet would lose its basic combat ability. A sonorous sound echoed. Sparks flew everywhere. Xiao Buchuan's figure turned in the air, and then he quickly landed. His face was full of disbelief, because at this moment, Xiao Bai's hand unexpectedly had an iron-like metal stick. That metal stick was full of flashing lightning. Xiao Buchuan's eyebrows twitched, and his heart suddenly had a bad premonition. Boom! The metal wings on Xiao Bai's back spread out. Those huge metal wings made Xiao Buchuan's face a little dark. In just a flash, Xiao Bai appeared in front of him. Xiao Buchuan sucked in a breath of cold air. The steel-gray knife kept sliding. It collided with the metal stick. Xiao Bai's movement was not very fast, but Xiao Buchuan had a hard time resisting. Stop playing. Hurry up and finish it. It's time to sleep. A faint voice floated out of the restaurant. Xiao Buchuan was surprised. His face suddenly showed a constipated expression. Play? Was this earth immortal puppet playing with him? Who was it looking down on? Boom! All of a sudden, Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes flashed. Then the war god's stick suddenly stabbed out. Xiao Buchuan's face changed. He took a step back, and the knife suddenly stabbed out. A ripping sound rang out. It seemed like it wanted to pierce the sky. Sizzle, sizzle. Thousands of lightning arcs burst out from the war god's stick. Xiao Buchuan looked at the stick that was rapidly approaching him. He was completely dumbfounded. This earth immortal puppet could actually discharge electricity. Sizzle, sizzle. Xiao Buchuan was struck by the lightning. In the next moment, his whole body was entangled in the lightning, and his bones could be faintly seen. His body trembled unceasingly. He put away the war god stick. Xiao Buchuan's eyes rolled back. His green afro was foaming at the mouth as he softly fell to the ground. Xiao Bai slowly walked over, and a ripping sound rang out. His clothes were torn apart, revealing his charred body. 1, 2, 3, go. Xiao Bai fiercely swung, and Xiao Buchuan's body fell in the air, falling in the distance. The onlookers were in an uproar once again. When Tong Shui saw this scene, he hurried forward. Tong Wudi had asked him to entertain the heaven chief from the second layer, but he had brought people to be stripped. If this was known, his buttocks would be smashed by Tong Wudi. Your Excellency, Xiao Buchuan. Tong Shui came to Xiao Buchuan's side, reached out, and grabbed his arm. Sizzle, sizzle. Lightning arcs shot out, and Tong Shui's body trembled from the electric shock. Tong family's mansion in the main hall. At this moment, the Tong family was entertaining distinguished guests. All kinds of immortal ingredients, immortal fruits, and immortal dishes were also arranged on the table. Tong Wudi's face was flushed, and he was talking to a middle-aged man next to him. That middle-aged man didn't refuse the immortal ingredients and immortal fruits on the table, but he rarely touched the immortal dishes. Come, Captain Shui. This is my Tong family's special wine. Come and have a taste. Tong Wudi received a green wine jar from a servant and personally poured a cup for the middle-aged man. The fragrance of the wine lingered, and the wine was like a sparkling emerald. Oh, not bad wine. The middle-aged man's eyes slightly lit up. He picked up the wine cup, drank it in one gulp, and clicked his tongue a few times. His eyes narrowed, and his face was full of enjoyment. The wine's fragrance is mellow, the taste is fresh, and the wine's strength is thick and thin. It can be considered a good wine. The middle-aged man said with a smile. Tong Wudi's face suddenly stiffened. This was the Tong family's best wine, and he, Tong Wudi, was usually reluctant to drink it. For the sake of the plan, he, Tong Wudi, had also spent a lot of money. However, thinking of the benefits that the Tong family could obtain after the plan succeeded, a strong smile appeared on Tong Wudi's face once again. He kept pouring wine. Xiao Buchuan was sent back. His whole body was flickering with lightning, and his hair was exploding. All the Heaven Chief Realm's second layers Heaven Chief Realm's experts heard the news and quickly rushed over. Seeing Xiao Buchuan's appearance, they couldn't help but laugh. That exploding green hair really looks like a green hat, a beautiful woman said with a smile, covering her red lips. Xiao Buchuan was actually so miserable. In the end, who did it? A man frowned. That's right, Xiao Buchuan's strength is not bad, and his cooking skills are also very strong. But how could he end up like this? The number of Heaven Chief Realm's second layers Heaven Chief Realm's experts who came to discuss this matter was not many, only 6 or 7 of them, after a round of chattering and analyzing. Tong Shui, wearing a brocade robe, walked in with a cautious face. The second layer's Heaven Chief discovered him and looked at him. Tong Shui didn't dare to hide anything, so he told everything to the Heaven Chief Realm. Arrogant, savage. There's actually such an overconfident person in the first layer. After these people heard it, their anger surged, and they all burst out shouting. They looked down on the first layer's Heaven Chief Realm's Heaven Chief Realm, but they didn't expect that their companion, Xiao Buchuan, would actually be humiliated by a lower layer's Heaven Chief. Moreover, he was stripped naked in public. This chef is courting death, a young man coldly said. Everyone, since we've come to the first layer, we naturally have to work together. Since someone dares to humiliate our compatriots, we can't just sit back and watch. Tomorrow, we'll go to that restaurant together and teach that chef a lesson. Tong Shui looked at this group of people filled with righteous indignation, and his heart was a little happy. That mortal chef was finished this time. Everyone, if you go to that restaurant tomorrow, what will you do if they ignore you? You can only use cooking skills to suppress that restaurant, and you can't use force to suppress it. Tong Shui said, "Why can't we use force to suppress it?" A woman frowned and asked, "Why?" Tong Shui smiled. He raised his finger and pointed above. Because that chef has a dog above him. Everyone was stunned, thinking that Tong Shui was playing with them. However, after Tong Shui explained, they understood that Bu Fong's background was not ordinary. If everyone trusts me, I can tell you the whereabouts of that little chef. As far as I know, that little chef will go to the Mu family every day. At that time, we only need to go to the Mu family to ask for him. Tong Shui rubbed his hands, narrowing his eyes. At that time, everyone can use your cooking skills to get back for Xiao Buchuan. Chapter 1025. Mu Residence, Immortal School. This was the place where the Mu residents trained the next Heaven Chief. As the saying went, when the heavens were about to bestow a great responsibility on a man, one must start from a child. The Mu residents had thoroughly implemented this concept. However, it was different from before. The previously noisy Mu clans becoming Immortal School was now orderly and orderly. As soon as they approached, they could smell the fragrance in the air, as well as the noise of dishes being stir-fried. That was the sound of the iron wok colliding with the stove, as well as the sound of the spatula colliding with the iron wok. The sound was pleasing to the ear, as if a moving piece of music was being played. Bu Fong wore a striped red and white vermilion robe, slowly walking over from the distance of the Mu residence. Today, he was going to choose the chef apprentice he wanted. Thus, Bu Fong seemed a little solemn today. Actually, he already had someone in mind. The chef apprentice that Bu Fong wanted naturally had to be talented. With talent, they could walk further on the culinary path. Although hard work could make up for one's lack of talent, without talent, no matter how diligent one was, it would still be difficult to reach a high level. If one was diligent and talented, it would be even better. Of course, Bu Fong did not have high expectations for these little fellows in the Immortal School. Stepping into the pavilion of the Immortal School, the little fellows who were cooking in front of their respective stoves immediately stopped what they were doing, greeting Bu Fong. Obviously, during these days, these little fellows had been trained well by Bu Fong. After greeting him, the little fellows continued their work. Swish, swish, swish. A kitchen knife spun in Mu Shou's hand, as if it was made of thin paper, incomparably light. The kitchen knife swung out, falling like a meteor, cutting the ingredients on the stove. This was the meteor knife skill that Bu Fong had taught them, and its power was not bad. Although it was only the first level of the meteor knife skill, it was enough for these little fellows to study for a long time. Mu Shou was the little boy who had been punished by Bu Fong to swing his knife 1,000 times. Today, his knife skill was already top-notch among his peers. And in the entire Immortal Ascension School, there was no one who could compare to Mu Shou's knife skills. Only Mu Yu, the little boy who was as beautiful as a girl, was also punished. The other was Mu Cici, the youngest child in the entire Immortalization School. She had a ponytail and was dressed in a one-piece dress. This time, Bu Fong's choice was none other than this little girl, Mu Cici. Mu Cici's culinary talent was amazing, and Bu Fong only discovered it later. This little girl's speed of learning was astonishing, and her comprehension was also especially shocking. Most importantly, Cici's tongue was far superior to that of ordinary people. His sensitivity to smell had reached a very exaggerated level. That was a type of immortal tongue, a unique advantage. Even Bu Fong did not have such an advantage. Among the Heaven Chief, it was very rare for a Heaven Chief to have an immortal tongue, because it was a 1 in a million chance. Bu Fong knew that the Mu family's people might not have discovered this characteristic of Cici. Therefore, Bu Fong wanted to take advantage of the fact that Cici had not been discovered to abduct her. Of course, Bu Fong was not in a hurry. After all, City Lord Mu Yang had promised him that he could choose anyone he wanted to be his apprentice. Mu Cici's little face was chubby, full of baby fat. At this moment, she was concentrating on cooking the dish in her hands. Her little face was red, which was a sign that she was releasing her mental energy. One had to admit that the advantage of the Heaven Chief realm was that these little babies had a very high starting point. Although Mu Cici was young, her cultivation had already reached the divine physique echelon, and this was because her body was still growing, so she was not allowed to break through to the divine soul echelon too early. With this kind of cultivation, the mental energy she possessed was enough to cook dishes. Bu Fong clasped his hands, expressionlessly watching Cici cook. Cici seemed to have noticed Bu Fong. It was unknown whether it was because she was nervous or excited, but her mental energy was actually a little chaotic at this moment. Cici's face instantly revealed a nervous and bewildered expression. Looking at Cici's state, Bu Fong's spirit slightly rolled. Then, a wave of mental energy was released, helping Cece stabilize her mental energy. The bewildered expression on Cece's face instantly disappeared. Raising her head, she looked at Bu Fong, grinning foolishly. "Thank you, old Bu. Please call me Teacher Bu or Owner Bu." Bu Fong calmly looked at Mu Cece. "Okay, old Bu," Mu Cece said. After saying that, she ignored Bu Fong, reaching out her hand to open the wok. Steaming hot air surged up from the wok, swirling around the roof. It was like a mushroom cloud. A fragrant aroma wafted out from the wok. Mu Cece's white and tender hands were covered with a thick cloth glove as she took out the dish from the wok. It was a porcelain jar, and the lid of the jar was a Buddha with a smooth belly sitting diagonally. "Buddha jumps over the wall soup." "Done," Mu Cece said with a childish voice. Then, she looked at Bu Fong with a complacent face. In the distance, Mu Shou and the others revealed a sense of defeat. Cece had actually learned the most difficult Buddha jumps over the wall soup that Teacher Bu had taught her. She was really a baby, infuriating to death. This was the so-called other people's baby, although Mu Shou and Mu Yu's knife skills were not weaker than Mu Cece's. When it came to cooking, they were far behind. Buddha jumps over the wall soup? Bu Fong was slightly surprised as he looked at Cece. This girl's talent was really too astonishing. Cece excitedly opened the lid of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. The Buddha's head was grabbed by Cece, and she lifted it up. "Old Bu, quickly try it. I added 36 ingredients into this Buddha jumps over the wall soup. Although they're not high-grade ingredients, it is still very difficult to combine them," Cece said. Then, she blinked her big eyes, staring at Bu Fong. Bu Fong nodded his head. He didn't say anything else. He scooped up a bowl of golden brown soup, scooped up a spoonful, and blew at the steam. Then, with a sizzling sound, he swallowed it. As it entered his mouth, the taste of the dish continuously spread. The taste of all kinds of constantly changing ingredients spread on the tip of his tongue and mouth. Although it was not as rich and unforgettable as the Buddha jumps over the wall soup cooked by Bu Fong, this kind of constantly changing taste was really a rare taste experience. As expected of a little girl with an immortal tongue, her control of taste made Bu Fong sigh in admiration. Not bad. Bu Fong drank a few more mouthfuls, praising the dish. Although the Buddha jumps over the wall soup had lost some of its basic taste due to the combination of too many ingredients, it was still a good dish. After receiving Bu Fong's praise, Cece was so excited that she started to dance. "Old Bu, Cece worked so hard. Is there a reward? I want a spicy strip as a reward," Cece said. In the distance, Mu Luer also stepped onto the steps of the Immortal Ascension School. When she saw Cece chatting with Bu Fong, a smile appeared on her face. Bu Fong didn't reject Cece's request. His hand flashed, and a spicy strip appeared. He handed it to Cece. After Cece received it, she happily ate it. Perhaps it was because her immortal tongue was sensitive, but Cece really liked the spicy strip, which seemed to have 1,000 different tastes. "Cece, do you want to go to Teacher Bu's restaurant to take a look?" Bu Fong rubbed Cece's head as he asked. "Old Bu's restaurant? Can Cece go?" Cece raised her head as she ate the spicy strip. Mu Luer also walked over. When she heard Bu Fong's words, she was a little surprised. "Owner Bu, could it be that the person you want to choose?" Mu Luer seemed to have guessed something, and she looked at Bu Fong with a bewildered expression. "Cece is still so young, but she is very talented," Bu Fong said seriously. Mu Luer didn't say anything else. Her father had already agreed to Bu Fong's request. This was also one of the conditions for Bu Fong to participate in the Heaven Chief competition. In the past, the Mu family had already failed Bu Fong once, and Mu Luer didn't want it to happen a second time. Thus, she didn't refuse. However, she was still a little suspicious. After all, Cece was still a little girl. After chatting for a while, Bu Fong's teaching continued. After a long time, the teaching ended. Everyone dispersed. Mu Luer walked over with Cece, who was carrying a small backpack. "Let's go. Teacher Bu will bring you to take a look at the restaurant." Bu Fong rubbed Cece's head as he said with a smile. Cece's eyes instantly lit up, and she cheered excitedly. Teacher Boo, can we go? In the distance, Mu Shou and Mu Yu blinked their eyes, their faces filled with desire. Bu Fong indifferently looked at the two of them, but he didn't refuse. Let's go together. Mu Yu and Mu Shou looked at each other, seeing the excitement in each other's eyes. The two of them followed, moving to the left and right of Cici, walking together. Mu Luer brought them out of the Mu family's residence. A group of people walked on a long street. All of a sudden, Mu Luer furrowed her brows. She felt a little puzzled. Tap, tap, tap. Bu Fong's footsteps also gradually stopped, and his hands, which were placed in the sleeves of the vermilion robe, slowly fell down. Who's there? Bu Fong calmly asked. The originally noisy street became silent at this moment, and the pedestrians who came and went disappeared. Without a doubt, Bu Fong's group had stepped into the array. In the distance, a figure appeared. Cici, Mu Shou, and the others had never seen such a scene before. They felt as though those people were demons that had walked out of hell. They were so scared that their small bodies trembled unceasingly. Mu Luer hugged the children, frowning. Bu Fong's eyes were indifferent as he looked into the distance. There a group of people walked out. Among them, there was a familiar face. It was Tong Shui, who had been stripped naked by Xiao Bai and thrown far away. Owner Bu, TSK, TSK, TSK. I finally meet you. Tong Shui narrowed his eyes, looking at Bu Fong with a sneer on his face. Beside him, there was a group of Heaven Chief wearing chef robes. The aura of these Heaven Chief was incomparably terrifying. Each of them was much stronger than the Heaven Chief that Bu Fong had seen before. These are the Heaven Chief from the second layer. Yesterday, your Earth Immortal puppet stripped your clothes. Your Excellency Xiao Buchuan was electrocuted to the point that he couldn't get out of bed. These Heaven Chief from the second layer are here to take revenge on Owner Bu, Tong Shui said. Take revenge? Bu Fong asked expressionlessly. However, before Tong Shui could say anything, the Heaven Chief behind Tong Shui was the first to open his mouth. You are the young Heaven Chief that the City Lord said is the strongest in the first layer? Xiao Buchuan couldn't find you, but we found you. We don't beat people or kill people. We just want you to have a cooking competition with us. We can have a good exchange and discuss cooking skills. If you don't obey, you will have to bear the consequences. We have already arranged an array here. Your Earth Immortal puppet can't sense it. The immortal chefs all spoke with sneers on their faces. How dare you? This is the first layer of the Heaven Chief world. It's under the jurisdiction of City Lord Mu Yang. Mu Luer hugged the children, glaring at them. Tong Shui laughed heartily. City Lord Mu Yang, soon, you won't be. After Tong Shui finished speaking, he seemed to realize that he had said too much and frowned. Mu Luner's eyes shrank. What did he mean? The exchange and discussion these days are too boring. The so-called Heaven Chief of the first layer is simply trash. I hope you won't disappoint us. A young man said indifferently, looking at Bu Fong. Bu Fong stood still. So, the reason why you guys set up this formation and waited for me was to compete with me in cooking. We want to crush you. If we didn't do that, how could you accept it? That fool Xiao Buchuan is his fate, a woman said with a smile. Bu Fong understood. His face was expressionless as he swept his eyes over everyone. He let out a deep breath. Then, he turned to look at the three children in Mu Luer's arms. Mu Shou, Mu Yu, Teacher Bu will teach you one last lesson today. Watch carefully, Bu Fong said. A moment later, he raised his head, looking at the second layer's Heaven Chief. Competing in cooking? Have you heard of Chef's Challenge? Chef's Challenge. Everyone was bewildered. Bu Fong looked at them and twitched the corner of his mouth, revealing his teeth. A Chef's Challenge. It's a cooking competition. The loser has to hand over his kitchen knife to the winner. Since we want to compete in cooking, ordinary discussions are meaningless. Let's have a Chef's Challenge. I alone will fight against the five of you. You guys come together. Chapter 10:26. Chef's Challenge. Arrogant. One against the five of us? What a joke. Bu Fong's words were like a huge stone thrown into a calm pond, instantly causing an uproar. The Heaven Chief from the second layer exchanged looks. They had never thought that the first layer's Heaven Chief wouldn't run away when facing them. Instead, he didn't show the slightest bit of fear. He even brought up the concept of a chef's challenge. You're courting death. Don't you want to be a chef anymore? The eyes of the second layer's Heaven Chief were filled with anger. Bu Fong's words and behavior were really challenging their endurance limit. Tong Shui was also dumbfounded. He didn't think that Bu Fong would be so domineering. In a chef's challenge, the loser had to give his kitchen knife to the winner. It was a little cruel. Every immortal chef cherished their kitchen knife very much. After all, it was their arm. After losing, he actually wanted to give his arm to someone else. You're courting death. The second layer's Heaven Chief said angrily. A stream of genuine qi surged out of his body. Since it's like this, I'll teach you how to be a person. I'll let you understand the real gap between us. The second layer's Heaven Chief was burning with anger. They had always looked down on the first layer's Heaven Chief, but today these Heaven Chief from the first layer actually dared to look down on them. It had always been them who looked down on the trash from the first layer. How could they tolerate this trash looking down on them? That trash even arrogantly said that he wanted to be better than the five of them. Did he really think that they were paper tigers that could be casually kneaded? Buzz, the scene in front of everyone instantly flashed. In the next instant, Tong Shui, Mu Luer, and the others were chased far away, watching the scene in front of them. Bu Fong was surrounded by the five Heaven Chief. Boom, 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 boom. The five Heaven Chief took out their respective stoves. Their stoves were overflowing with colorful lights, emitting a dazzling radiance. Buzz, the cries of the sabers rang out incessantly. These Heaven Chief took out their kitchen knives one after another. Immortal energy swirled around the kitchen knife. The kitchen knives used by these immortal chefs were actually immortal tools. Moreover, judging from the immortal qi lingering around them, they were all mid-grade immortal tools. In the distance, a trace of worry appeared in Mu Lunar's eyes. Mu Luer naturally recognized these five people. They were the second floor's Heaven Chief, who had gone to the City Lord's mansion a few days ago. There was no doubt that their cooking skills were excellent. It should be known that these chefs had the confidence to enter the top 300 in the Immortal Chef Tournament. Mu Sisi was nestled in Mu Luer's embrace. Although she was young, she was not stupid. She could feel that Bu Fong seemed to be engaged in a cooking battle. Old Bu, kill them all. Mu Sisi clenched her fists and shouted in a childish voice. Mu Luer didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This little girl, the five people surrounding Bu Fong, looked at Bu Fong disdainfully. Chef's challenge. Just you? Bu Fong gently exhaled. Then his mind flickered. The dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. In that case, let's start the chef's challenge. Bu Fong said. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone suddenly felt something, and they couldn't help but raise their heads to look at the sky. However, they found that there seemed to be an invisible pressure in the sky. The faces of the five people from the second floor instantly changed. This feeling was a little strange. Bu Fong was quite familiar with it. He looked at the sky. Once the chef's challenge was completed, it should be the will of the great path descending, urging the completion of this chef's challenge. However, 1 against 5, the pressure was not small. His mind flickered, and the black turtle constellation Walk also appeared. In the distance, the five people had already taken out ingredients from their spatial bags. Portions of ingredients, shrouded in immortal energy, were placed on the stove. Knife light emerged, covering the sky. Kitchen knives spun in the air. Cooking ingredients fluttered. In an instant, the five of them displayed their culinary skills. A terrifying pressure and aura burst out from their bodies. Tong Shui's eyes shrank, looking at this chef's challenge in shock. The pressure that pervaded the air caused all the muscles in his body to slightly tremble. So strong, worthy of being the Heaven Chief Realm's second floor's Heaven Chief Realm. Tong Shui sucked in a breath of cold air. Boom, boom. The aura emanating from the bodies of the five of them formed illusory shadows above their heads. It was a figure, as if they were indifferent to the sky. It was the aura that belonged to their cooking skills. "It's starting. I hope you won't let me down." Bufang gently exhaled. A moment later, his hand moved, and the dragon bone kitchen knife instantly appeared in his hand. It spun rapidly in his palm. The whistling knife light instantly filled the whole place. With a dragon roar, the dragon bone kitchen knife blossomed with golden light, and ingredients flew out from the system's spatial bag. This chef's challenge didn't have any restrictions. It was to see who could suppress the other's dishes. In fact, the chef's challenge of the Heaven Chief realm, it was already very direct and violent, using the power to crush and explode with lightning. Tap! Tap! In the second floor's Heaven Chief, there was a person holding a long kitchen knife. The speed of the knife was so fast that it dazzled people's eyes. At a glance, it seemed as if there were 3 arms cutting the ingredients at the same time. As for his ingredients, they were all chopped into small pieces. That kind of neat and tidy cut, every grain was the same size. Each of them had their own specialty, and their knife skills were also different from each other. Mu Cici, Mu Shou, and the others, who were in Mu Luer's arms, widened their eyes as they watched this chef's challenge. This chef's challenge made their small bodies extremely excited. They were so excited. Teacher Boo will definitely win. Teacher Boo's cooking skills are the best I've ever seen. It's impossible for him to lose. Old Boo beat them up. Mu Shou, Mu Yu, and Mu Cici, the 3 children, all cheered for Bufang. Of course, they wouldn't miss out on every cooking detail. No matter if it was Bufang's or those chefs, they were all cooking skills that were worth learning. This was a high-level Heaven Chief's challenge. Boom, boom, boom. Their knife skills were displayed. Next, they displayed their flames one after another. Without a doubt, these Heaven Chief's flames were all immortal flames. If they wanted to become high-level Heaven Chief, they must have their own immortal flames. As soon as these immortal flames appeared, the temperature of the entire space became extremely hot. These chefs looked at Bufang with disdain. They guided the immortal flames into their stoves. That level's trash didn't even have an immortal tool stove. How could they compete with them? Before they even started, they had already lost. A stove was very important to a chef, and Bufang really didn't need a stove. The meteor knife skill was displayed. It was as if a pitch-black sky had appeared, and meteors were falling from the sky. "This is the perfect meteor knife skill," Bufang said calmly. His voice reached the ears of Mu Cici, Mu Shou, and the others. The children couldn't help but show a look of surprise. The second layer of the Heaven Chief realm's Heaven Chief realm was instantly enraged. While they were having a chef's challenge, he dared to teach others. This fellow was really boundlessly arrogant. It seemed that they had to completely crush him and take away all his cooking tools to vent their hatred. Boom! Flames shot up to the sky. These immortal flames turned into tangible objects surrounding their stoves. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Hot air surged up to the sky. The aroma filled the air in an instant. Between each other, they actually condensed into spirit beasts. Above the sky, dark clouds quickly shrouded over. Outside the formation, at this moment, the noisy street was in an uproar. They looked at the dark clouds gathering in the sky, all of them extremely shocked. In the Gongshu mansion, Gongshu Ban opened his eyes. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. This feeling, it's owner Boo. Then, Gongshu Ban stood up, put on his long robe, and flew out. On the way, he met Xianyuan Xiaohui. The two exchanged looks, understanding each other. At this moment, many of the Heaven Chief in the Immortal City were attracted by this imposing aura, dashing toward a direction on the street. The heads of the aristocratic families also seemed to have the same feeling. Buzz, due to the pressure of heaven and earth, the formation gradually lost its effect. Instantly, the scene in the field was revealed. The surrounding pedestrians were in an uproar. They retreated to a distance, watching the cooking competition in shock. Seeing the 5 Heaven Chief surrounding owner Boo, Many people who knew Bu Fong exclaimed in surprise. Is that the five heaven chief fighting against owner Bu? Awesome. 1 against 5. Domineering. Those five heaven chief are so strong. The surrounding onlookers instantly chattered. For a moment, this battle became the focus of everyone's attention. Someone found that the five heaven chief were the heaven chief from the second layer of the heaven chief realm. Instantly, it set off a frenzy which made the audience so excited. In people's impression, the heaven chief of the second layer of the heaven chief realm had always crushed the heaven chief of the first layer. Today, such an exaggerated and unbelievable scene happened. The five heaven chief of the second layer were fighting against the heaven chief of the first layer at the same time. The audience consciously gave the place to Bu Fong and the others. Gong Shu Ban, Xianyuan Xiaohui, and the other heaven chief arrived. They watched the chef's challenge from a distance, their faces solemn. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky, suddenly the pressure rose and black clouds came. The sound of thunder rumbled unceasingly. The battle in the arena had also gradually entered a white-hot stage. In the distance, in a towering pavilion, City Lord Mu Yang clasped his hands, watching the chef's challenge from a distance. His eyes narrowed, and there seemed to be light flashing in them. Good. Let's see if this little chef can shine in this time's Heaven Chief competition. Let's see what happens next. The Tong family, the Zhang family, and the leader of the second layer's Heaven Chief team were also standing on a high place, watching. Leader Chui, what do you think about this chef's challenge? Tong Wudi asked Leader Chui with a smile. What opinion do I need? Your first layer's Heaven Chief is all trash. This is a slaughter without any suspense. Leader Chui clasped his hands, smiling faintly. Tong Wudi's face stiffened. Moreover, that chef from the first layer chose to fight 1 against 5. Isn't he seeking his own death? Once he loses, that chef's culinary path will be broken. Steward Chui, that chef is the strongest young, immortal chef in the first layer that the city lord mentioned, Chui Lufeng said. Tong Wudi said, he's a kid who has created countless miracles. Miracles? Impossible. In front of true power, he can only be crushed. Steward Chui said disdainfully. Also, Head Tong, I don't know if the conditions we mentioned yesterday are true. You should know that what we're doing this time is very disgraceful. Don't worry, Steward Chui. I won't forget what I promised you. Very good. Let's wait and see. It's starting to attract the lightning punishment. Muluer raised her head to look at the sky, her face solemn. So, this is the lightning punishment. Mu Cici's eyes widened as she looked at the rolling thunderclouds. She couldn't help but feel envious. One day, she would be able to cook a dish that could attract the lightning punishment. Rumble. Bu Fong's palm touched the black turtle constellation walk. The black turtle constellation walk instantly spun. He glanced at the sky, his face indifferent. The 5 people around him also looked at the sky. The next moment, they all looked at Bu Fong with cold smiles on their faces. Boom! The 5 of them released their powerful mental force at the same time. Their sneers echoed. First layer's trash, feel despair. Boom! 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 One by one, the wok lids were lifted. Instantly, the rich aroma of dishes wafted out from the wok. In the sky, the lightning that had been suppressed for a long time began to gather. Rumbling sounds rang out. Bu Fong gently exhaled. He flicked his finger on the black turtle constellation wok, and the lid fell back. At this moment, the thunderclouds in the middle. Rumbling sounds rang out as they smashed down. 6 thunderclouds swept down from the sky, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, roaring furiously. In the sky, they began to kill each other. At the same time, the 5 thunder dragons on the edge rushed toward the lightning punishment summoned by Bu Fong. This scene caused everyone to burst into an uproar. No one had thought that such a situation would happen. Is this because of the chef's challenge? Bu Fong raised his head, looking at the void. There, light flashed. The 6 thunder dragons fought unceasingly. The chef's challenge attracts the will of the great path. The thunder dragons that the dish attracts will be the key to determine the winner. Now, Let's see whose lightning punishment is stronger. Chapter 10:27. Strange. Why are the lightning punishments fighting against each other? There's such a thing? The lightning punishments will fight against each other? It's too shocking. It's a thunder dragon battle. The audience looked up at the 6 thunder dragons fighting against each other in the sky. They swooped down from the dark clouds, tearing and biting each other. The audience could only hear the roars of thunder, and the explosions continued to spread in all directions. This cool scene caused many people to roar in excitement. The 5 Heaven Chief on the second layer were also a little confused. A moment later, their eyes focused. They were not fools. With one look, they understood what was going on. Is this the so-called Chef's Challenge? One of the Heaven Chief said with a grin. Using the number of lightning punishments as the standard to judge the dish, the 6 lightning punishments would fight against each other. Decide that one would be the winner of the Chef's Challenge. But we have 5 lightning punishments. 1 against 5? Where did he get his courage from? The second layer's Heaven Chief was incomparably confident. The aroma of the dishes in their hands lingered. However, at this moment, the focus of the audience was not the dishes but the thunder dragons above their heads. Boom! Boom! The battle of the 6 lightning punishments seemed to have ignited the focus of the audience, causing their blood to boil. The 5 thunder dragons, which were formed by lightning, danced around the thunder dragon in the middle. Electric sparks danced around it. Those thunder dragons were vivid, as though they were real creatures. One could even see the clear scales on them. Those scales looked so obvious. With a ripping sound, the thunder dragon drilled out, rushing toward Bu Fong's thunder dragon. Boom! A loud explosion rang out, and electric sparks instantly swept across the entire area. It was so dazzling that it seemed to light up the entire sky. At this moment, it was almost night, and the sky had begun to turn pitch black. However, under the illumination of the thunder dragon, it was incomparably bright. The audience below let out excited roars as they watched the battle in the sky. Sister Lure, do you think old Boo's lightning punishment can win? Mu Sisi blinked her big eyes, looking at Mu Lure as she asked. Mu Lure's face froze. For a moment, she did not know how to answer. Could he win? She didn't have any plan in mind. Perhaps he could win. After all, his opponent was Bu Fong, a mortal chef from the lower realm who kept creating miracles. But right now, he was facing 5 Heaven Chief from the second level. These Heaven Chiefs' cooking skills weren't weaker than Gongshu Ban's. Unless Bu Fong's dish could trigger 3 lightning punishments, it would be very difficult for him to win. In the distance, Gongshu Ban had the same thought. Of the 3 lightning punishment lightning dragons, each one stronger than the previous one. If the 3rd lightning punishment were to fall, these lightning punishments would definitely not be able to withstand it, and would be torn to shreds. At that time, the winner should be Bu Fong. From the lightning punishment, Gongshu Ban and the others understood. The final result of this cooking competition was decided by the lightning punishment in the sky. Bu Fong clasped his hands behind his back, his vermilion robe fluttering in the strong wind. Up in the sky, it was as bright as day, and there was a constant commotion. The rumbling sounds were deafening and resounded continuously. It was a brutal battle that shook people's hearts. 5 thunder dragons dashed toward the thunder dragon that Bu Fong had summoned. They opened their mouths and released lightning bolts, biting on the thunder dragon's neck and tearing it apart. Lightning bolts swept and collided. Everybody couldn't help but clench their fists. They suddenly felt that they weren't watching a cooking competition, but a blood-boiling battle. All of a sudden, everybody screamed in fear. In the sky, Bu Fong's thunder dragon was bitten and smashed into pieces. Its head was bitten off, and its tail was crushed. The audience was in an uproar. They couldn't believe what they had just seen. Some people clutched their heads, crying out in disbelief. Bu Fong's thunder dragon was bitten into pieces, which meant that Bu Fong's thunder dragon was defeated. Bu Fong was defeated. That mortal chef, who kept creating miracles, was defeated. Mu Sisi was a little anxious. She grabbed the hem of Mu Lure's clothes, pointing at the broken thunder dragon in the sky. her face anxious. Ha ha! Indeed, the trash of the first layer is trash. Do you deserve a chef's challenge? When the second layer, Immortal Chef, saw Bufong's thunder dragon vanish, he exhaled as though a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Previously, they were afraid that they would fail miserably. However, it seemed that everything was settled now. The thunder dragon was bitten into pieces, which meant that they had won this chef's challenge. In their hands, the aroma of the dishes kept gathering, turning into strands of immortal energy. The immortal energy wound around the dishes, making them look dreamy and illusory. Do you feel despair? Do you regret your chef challenge now? Bah, scared me. I thought I was going to lose. Lose? If I lose to a trash of the first layer, I will eat that stove. Ha ha ha. The second layer's heaven chief was so happy. He couldn't stop laughing. In the distance, City Lord Mu Yang furrowed his brows, a trace of disappointment in his eyes. Did he really lose? Tong family chief, you see, trash is trash. In the end, it's impossible for him to defeat the second layer's genius heaven chief. Captain Chui laughed. He clasped his hands, turned around, and was about to leave. He didn't want to see that trashy chef's fate anymore. Oh, seems like you guys are very confident. Bufong clasped his hands, his face indifferent. He looked at the shattered thunder dragon, not a trace of care on his face. Bufong's words made everybody freeze. The 5-second layer's heaven chief's laughter stopped. Mu Luer's eyes brightened, staring at the sky. Gong Shu Ban and Xianyuan Xiaohui seemed to think of something, gazing at the void without blinking. They were waiting for something. You're just a trash of the first layer. What are you so proud of? The thunder dragon was bitten into pieces. You still don't want to admit defeat? This chef's challenge. You've lost. The heavenly path has acknowledged it. Don't tell me you still want to deny it? The second layer's heaven chief mocked and ridiculed. They were exercising the winner's authority. Hey, the guy who said he would eat the stove if he lost. Does he still keep his word? However, Bufong was indifferent to their mockery and ridicule. The corners of his mouth twitched, looking at the crowd in the distance. Do you think you can turn the tables? If I lose, I'll eat the stove. It was a young, immortal chef. He looked rather rough, and he said angrily, Good. I'm looking forward to that scene. Bufong nodded. Then, he raised his head, looking at the sky. Your thunder dragon is hurt badly. The 5 heaven chief were bewildered. They lifted their heads. A moment later, their eyes shrank. They found that after their thunder dragons had bitten Bufong's thunder dragon, their lightning bolts had dimmed a lot, and there were many holes in the lightning bolts. Even though Bufong's thunder dragon had been torn apart, it was still badly injured. At this moment, if another thunder dragon attacked, the 5 of them sucked in a breath of cold air. Hey, who said I only have one lightning punishment? Bufong said. As soon as he said that, in the pitch-black layer of clouds, another thunderclap rang out. Light emerged. A thunder dragon flashing with lightning bolts drilled out of the dark clouds, roaring as it charged toward the 5 thunder dragons. Double lightning punishment. The 5-second layer heaven chief sucked in a breath of cold air, their pupils shrinking. The surrounding onlookers also let out a roar at this moment. The sudden reversal made them so excited that they couldn't restrain their excitement. Beat them. Old Boo, you could do it. Mu Sisi was so excited that she danced with joy. Gong Shu Ban and the others exhaled in relief. Indeed, it was Owner Boo's style. Far from them, City Lord Mu Yang grinned as a look of admiration appeared in his eyes. Captain Chui, who had turned around and walked far away, was shaken when he heard the thunderclap. Then he turned around, gazing at the void in the distance. How could it be? Double lightning punishment? The trash of the first layer can trigger the double lightning punishment. Captain Chui's eyes shrank, asking disbelievingly. The Tong family's head also took a deep breath. He couldn't help but admit that Bufong's cooking talent was really amazing. However, even so, it couldn't stop him from doing what he was about to do. The reappearance of the Thunder Dragon once again ignited the climax of the audience. The Thunder Dragon attacked, tearing it apart. The second layer, Heaven Chief's Thunder Dragon, was torn apart like a piece of paper. There were 2 lightning punishments, and each one was stronger than the one before it. Thus, the result was obvious. The Thunder Dragon collapsed. The black clouds that shrouded their heads also slowly scattered. Crack! Crack! The dishes on the porcelain plates in their hands began to tremble. The porcelain plates shattered, scattering on the ground. Slowly, the immortal aura faded away. Sizzle, sizzle, rumble. However, the lightning punishment that had torn the 5 Thunder Dragons didn't stop. Roaring, it stormed toward Buffon. At this moment, the air had a burning smell. The Thunder Dragon followed Buffon's head, grumblingly pounding. Boom! Everyone's eyes shone with a bright light. The light was dazzling. Ha ha ha! Without the Earth Immortal Puppet, this fellow will be killed by the lightning punishment. A second layer Heaven Chief seemed to think of something, speaking excitedly. They were defeated. Although it was hard to accept this fact, it was the truth. They couldn't avoid it. However, if the Thunder Dragon killed Buffon, this fact would become a thing of the past. However, the others looked at the laughing man as if they were looking at an idiot. In the field, a loud and clear bird cry rang out. Scarlet flaming feathers fluttered in the sky. Everybody was fascinated by the scene in the field. The incandescent lightning dispersed. Instantly, people took in a breath of cold air. The red and white striped vermilion robe on Buffon's body had turned scarlet. The scarlet light shrouded his body. Behind him, a pair of scarlet flaming wings unfolded, with flaming feathers fluttering in the air. Buffon raised one hand. In his palm was the sizzling Thunder Dragon. The scene was so shocking that people were dumbstruck. Even the 5-second layer Heaven Chief shivered, catching the Thunder Dragon with his bare hands. Did he want to ascend to the heavens? The Tautai arm exerted force, and the Thunder Dragon was smashed by Buffon. Of course, he had to rely on the powerful defense of the vermilion robe to do that. With the invincibility of the vermilion robe, Buffon dared to try to catch the Lord Go's exquisite claw with his bare hands. The Thunder Dragon vanished, and the dark clouds in the sky also dispersed. There was a faint fragrance lingering in the air. Buffon took out the dish from the black turtle constellation walk. The aroma slowly diffused. A Buddha with a gentle smile on his face suddenly appeared. Wow, it's the Buddha jumps over the walls soup. The moment Cece saw Buffon take out the dish, her eyes brightened. She cheered. Buffon waved at Cece, who was not far from him. Cece excitedly dashed over. Have you learned the cooking method of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup? Buffon gently asked Cece. From today onwards, you are my apprentice chef. I hope your cooking skills can reach a higher level. Cece's eyes were shining as she stared at the Buddha jumps over the wall soup in Buffon's hands. In the distance, Mu Shou and Mu Yu's faces were solemn. Was this the last lesson Owner Bu was going to teach them? Mu residence Mu Yang, who was standing on a tall building, stiffened. Looking at Mu Cece, who was standing beside Buffon, his eyes widened. Cece. In the distance with a cracking sound, the Tong family's railing was crushed by Captain Shui. Captain Shui quietly snorted, flicked his sleeves, and left. The wind dispersed. Buffon handed the Buddha jumps over the wall soup to Mu Cece. Then, he lazily raised his eyes, looking at the 5 people in the distance. Who said that the loser would have to eat the stove? This kind of operation, I really want to see. Chapter 1028. Lost. The audience was in an uproar. At this moment, the onlookers looked at Buffon with fiery eyes. Owner Bu had won. This mortal heaven chief from the lower realm had once again created a miracle. His opponents were 5 heaven chief. Facing 5 heaven chief at the same time and defeating them with one strike, it was unbelievable. I know them. They're the heaven chief discussion team from the second layer. What? Owner Bu is competing with the heaven chief from the second layer? Honorable defeated the Heaven Chief from the second layer. Someone recognized Bu Fong's opponents. In fact, it was easy to recognize them because they were the Heaven Chief from the second layer. When they descended to the first layer, they had attracted many people's attention. However, that was not the focus of people's attention now. Bu Fong defeated the Heaven Chief from the second layer? How is that possible? It should be noted that no matter from which aspect, the Heaven Chief from the first layer was always at a disadvantage when facing the Heaven Chief from the second layer. The limited resources made the Heaven Chief from the first layer weaker than the Heaven Chief from the second layer. Of course, over the years, there had been many monstrous Heaven Chief from the first layer. Those Heaven Chief could stand out in the Heaven Chief competition and enter the top 200. Such existences were rare. Even if there were, they would have become the famous third-grade Heaven Chief. Was Honorable a monstrous genius? Many people were deep in thought and absent-minded. He's just a immortal chef from the world of mortals. His growth is really too fast. Eating the stove? The face of the Heaven Chief from the second layer, who had boasted before, turned pale. He had never thought that Bu Fong could turn the tables. The Heaven Chief from the first layer could cook a dish that could trigger the second lightning punishment and defeat their lightning punishment. He had crushed them to death at their proudest moment. Let's put the matter of eating the stove aside for now. Let's finish the bet for the chef's challenge first. Bu Fong said lightly. He put his hands in the pockets of the vermilion robe and looked into the distance calmly. Cece was holding the Buddha jumps over the wall, soup cooked by Bu Fong. The Buddha jumps over the wall soup was glowing, and the Buddha looked as though he was coming to life. There was a smile on his face. Bu Fong chose to cook the Buddha jumps over the wall soup because he wanted to teach these little guys. However, it was just an ordinary Buddha jumps over the wall soup. It was not as difficult as the heaven-grade Buddha jumps over the wall soup. As Bu Fong's culinary skills improved, so did the grade of the ingredients. The level of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup kept rising. For example, the mortal-grade Buddha jumps over the wall soup he had just cooked had almost reached the level of a third-grade immortal dish. A third-grade immortal dish could only be cooked by the best of the first-grade immortal chefs. Bet? What bet? In the distance, the faces of the 5 Heaven Chief from the second layer changed, and they all shouted. Their faces were sullen. This time, they had failed miserably, which made their hearts really uncomfortable. They thought that they could help Xiao Buchuan regain his face. In the end, both of them had lost their faces. This guy was really monstrous. Everyone, let's go. That kind of bet is simply a joke. At this time, Tong Shui opened his mouth, breaking the awkwardness of the second layer Heaven Chief. The importance of a kitchen knife to a chef is self-evident. This so-called bet actually wants to take away the kitchen knife of the loser. How can there be such a vicious bet in this world? Tong Shui said, Yes. This doesn't conform to the norm. We will not hand over the kitchen knife. With Tong Shui breaking the deadlock, the others seemed to have grasped the last life-saving dish. Everyone's face revealed a forced smile. The surrounding people looked at them with disdain, willing to bet, but not willing to admit defeat. This was really shameful. Looks like you want to deny it. However, it's not that easy to deny a chef challenge. Bu Fong's face was still as calm as ever. He looked at them indifferently. Cece, Mu Shou, and Mu Yu ran to the side, opening the lid of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. As soon as the lid was opened, beams of light shot out from the porcelain jar, as though they were rushing into the sky. The faces of the 3 children revealed a look of surprise. Smelling the fragrance in the air, their faces were filled with intoxication. Immortal energy, golden light, rich fragrance. The combination of the 3 made people's bodies and minds intoxicated in this dish. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky, there were no dark clouds shrouding the pitch-black night sky. However, it still let out a thunderous roar. A huge wave of pressure spread out from it. The faces of the 5 second layer Heaven Chief instantly changed. This is, Bu Fong raised his head to look at the sky, the corners of his mouth twitching. It's starting. As a chef's challenge recognized by the great path of the Heaven Chief realm, You can't deny it just because you want to. Sizzle, sizzle. A loud explosion rang out. Suddenly, a blue lightning arc came crashing down from the sky. Its speed was extremely fast, and in just a blink of an eye, it hit the place where one of the Heaven Chief was standing. That Heaven Chief's reaction was fast. In just a blink of an eye, he moved to the side, creating a deep, charred pit on the ground. At this moment, the 5-second layer Heaven Chief also understood. The so-called Chef's Challenge was recognized by the Great Path. Unless they could resist the Great Path's will, they would definitely lose their kitchen knives. At this moment, their hearts were bleeding. Those were their precious kitchen knives. Those kitchen knives were all immortal tools, and so were even middle-grade immortal tools. They were not willing to hand them over to this first-layer guy, just like that. They looked at Bufong, and Bufong nodded at them. His mind flickered. Instantly, a magic array appeared under Bufong's feet. The magic array twinkled and rotated, and a crystal knife cabinet slowly emerged from it. When the crowd saw that dazzling crystal knife cabinet, they instantly burst into an uproar. That was because there were so many kitchen knives in that cabinet. All kinds of kitchen knives were dazzling. Looking at that knife cabinet, no matter how much they killed, they knew that they had fallen into Bufong's trap. Looking at the kitchen knives in the cabinet, they knew that this fellow must have participated in many chef challenges. But no matter if their hearts were bleeding or not, to avoid the Great Path's lightning strike, they chose to let go. The knife cabinet emitted a suction force. It sucked away their immortal tools and kitchen knives. All of them floated toward Bufong. Bufong raised his hand, and those colorful kitchen knives instantly floated around him. He flicked his finger. It bounced on the kitchen knives. A buzzing sound rang out unceasingly. "They're all good kitchen knives," Bufong said in admiration. "How could they not be good? Those were all mid-grade immortal tools." The eyes of the second layer's Heaven Chief revealed a look of resentment. They were unwilling. If they lost those kitchen knives, their cooking skills would drop a lot, of course. Bufong didn't care about their murderous gazes. His mind flickered. Those kitchen knives were placed into the cabinet. "Humph. You're just a junior. You dare to scheme against us, the second layer's Heaven Chief. Do you think you're qualified to take away these immortal tools?" Just as Bufong was putting the kitchen knives back into the cabinet, a loud sound rang out. The void suddenly let out a snort. The sound seemed to explode the void. Everybody could hear the buzzing sound in their ears. It was so ear-piercing. The faces of Mu Luer, Gongshu Ban, and the others instantly changed. This aura, it was the leader of the second layer's Heaven Chief. Boom! The void suddenly exploded. A moment later, a big hand made of energy slapped toward Bufong's knife cabinet. It wanted to smash the cabinet in one move. This sudden change made everybody go into an uproar. Bufong's face stiffened. In the distance, the 5-second layer's Heaven Chief looked happy. "It's Leader Chui. We can keep our immortal tools now. Kill him. That trash set a trap for us. Leader Chui, you have to stand up for us." The 5 Heaven Chief seemed to have found a life-saving straw, and they all shouted, "Rumble! Rumble!" That palm slapped toward Bufong. A terrifying pressure spread out in an instant. This pressure contained a terrifying suppressive force. This was a palm that had fused with the will of the Great Path. Thinking about it, the person who made this move must have a powerful cultivation base. However, to Bufong, the so-called pressure was just a joke. In Bufong's perception, this person's pressure was much weaker than Realm Lord did, who liked to be naked. They were not on the same level. Shameless, Mu Luer's face was filled with anger. As the palm slapped down, the void shattered unceasingly. Suddenly, in the direction of the City Lord's mansion, at the same time, a palm of energy slapped over. Rumbling sounds resounded unceasingly, colliding with Leader Chui's palm. Instantly, there was an explosion. "Leader Chui, why do you need to attack a junior? This is a competition between juniors. Winning and losing is normal. If you're not satisfied, you can just win it back in the Heaven Chief competition." A voice filled with a faint smile resounded. City Lord Mu Yang's voice resounded. Mu Luer and the others instantly revealed a joyful look. Bu Fong looked in the direction of the City Lord's mansion. The black energy twirling around his hand also dispersed. The mental force in his mind also slowly calmed down. Heaven Chief Restaurant Lord Go's exquisite dog paw stiffened. Then he casually scratched his head. Forget it. I'll just lie down for a while. Mu Yang had made a move. This was something that no one had expected, not even Leader Chui. However, Mu Yang was the city lord. Although he had the weakest cultivation base, he still had the status of a city lord. Leader Chui couldn't force him too much. Hence, he snorted and chose to stop. Still not coming back? A bunch of shameful things, Leader Chui coldly snorted. On the Tong family's tall building, Leader Chui's face was gloomy as he looked in the direction of the City Lord's mansion. His eyes slightly narrowed. City Lord Muyang. Not bad. With a cold snort, Leader Chui flicked his sleeves and left. Tong Wudi grabbed the railing of the tall building, gently exhaling as he looked into the distance. The corners of his mouth rose, revealing a faint smile. In the end, the Heaven Chief, who was eating the stove, did not eat. After all, the will of the Great Path did not pay attention to his words. Hence, it was not a problem for him to go back on his words. The 5 Heaven Chiefs of the second layer of the Heaven Chief's mansion left dejectedly. They were so aggrieved that their hearts were bleeding. At first, they thought that it would be a show of strength, but in the end, they were defeated by the guys from that layer. Their immortal tool, the kitchen knife, was also taken away. This had dealt a big blow to their strength. In the upcoming Heaven Chief competition, if they lost their telepathic kitchen knife, their performance would definitely plummet. Bu Fong brought Cici, Mu Shou, and the others back to the restaurant. He took Cici to visit the restaurant's kitchen, confirming Cici's identity. Cici was extremely curious about everything in the kitchen. These cooking tools had subverted her knowledge and completely changed her view of the world. Curiosity, fun, and other emotions made the little girl so excited that she couldn't sleep well after returning to the Mu family. From now on, she would personally go to Bu Fong's restaurant to learn how to cook. The Heaven Chief's team from the second layer of the Heaven Chief's mansion left. 3 days later, the Heaven Chief competition would begin. They needed to return to the second layer to prepare for the competition. Not long after the Heaven Chief's team left, a piece of news that shocked the entire first layer of the Heaven Chief's mansion spread out. City Lord Mu Yang of the first layer of the Heaven Chief's mansion has fallen. As soon as this news came out, it was like an earthquake. The entire first layer of the Heaven Chief's mansion was in an uproar. City Lord Mu Yang fell when he went to the wilderness to hunt the savage beasts. The head of the Tong family, Tong Wudi, has announced that he will be the acting city lord of the Immortal City, in charge of the Immortal City's affairs. That day, the Mu family in the Immortal City was on fire. The Mu family, who had rebelled against Tong Wudi and become the acting city lord, was uprooted and destroyed overnight by the Tong family and many other families in the Immortal City. It was late at night. Outside the closed door of the Heaven Chief restaurant, 3 figures wrapped in black robes dragged their exhausted bodies to the front of the gate. They knocked hard on the door. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.